A team fights Janshin, a regenerating level boss, while the protagonist explains the hype surrounding the new game. As one of the highest level players, he uses his skills to help the party defeat Janshin. When the boss is nearly dead, his teammates log out one by one and he wishes them good night. After collecting the dropped items alone, he introduces himself as Satoshi Osako, a programmer who recently lost his job. With plenty of free time, Satoshi now spends his days playing at home and is known among players as the Great Sage. While spending reputation points, he hears Janshin promise revenge by erasing him from the world, despite the quest already being complete. That day, Japan suffers a nationwide blackout, and several people are later found dead for unknown reasons. Satoshi awakens in an unfamiliar place wearing clothes identical to his game equipment. After seeing an impossible flower, he attempts to open his game status. His status appears with abilities closer to a game master than an ordinary character, followed by a message from Megami-chan. The goddess Frey-chan explains that an evil spirit from the game caused his teammates' deaths, so she transported the only survivor into the game world. Satoshi must now defeat the spirit and survive. Furious at being burdened alone, he wishes he could confront the goddess. After calming down, he decides to leave the dangerous forest and search for a village. Satoshi encounters a monster and tries to flee, but it calls its companions. Goblins chase him through the forest as he runs toward a distant light, hoping it is a settlement. Instead, he reaches a goblin camp and realizes the omnivorous monsters intend to eat him. Unable to escape, Satoshi activates his abilities. A brilliant sphere of power engulfs the camp and terrifies the goblins. When the attack ends, only small craters remain. Satoshi regrets damaging the land and hopes he will not need to kill again, realizing this world follows different laws. Elsewhere, a girl named Taina rests by a fire with her grandfather, who notices her exhaustion. Taina asks why she cannot use magic despite being the granddaughter of a great sage. He assures her that her time will come. Before sleeping, Taina reads a prophecy that fate will change when she meets a great sage and chooses to believe it. A week passes. Satoshi awakens screaming when something pulls down his trousers. A wild monkey is behind him, forcing him to flee in panic. Hungry afterward, he shoots a rabbit with a bow and is shocked by the weapon's power. Realizing the high-level bow is dangerously destructive, Satoshi decides to control his strength before hunting again. He then beheads an orc with his sword and feels guilty, but hunger forces him to consider using its meat. His skills allow him to process the corpse easily. Satoshi compares his power to a god's but resents the gods for abandoning him where no humans live. A wyvern appears overhead, leaving Satoshi exhausted by the constant danger. While fleeing, he finds a road that may lead to civilization and randomly chooses a direction. He bathes and washes his clothes in a river, then notices a cart crossing a bridge and follows it. Walking beside the carriage, Satoshi catches Taina's attention, and she tells her grandfather that a mage-like man is nearby. As they study him, the driver reports that a fallen log blocks the road. Taina's grandfather immediately senses danger. Bandits reveal themselves and surround the cart. Their leader threatens to steal everything and sell the women and children, forcing Taina's grandfather to draw his sword. Satoshi steps out and uses magic to remove both the bandits and the fallen log. The attackers freeze solid and shatter when they hit the ground. After killing them, Satoshi realizes the roadblock was an ambush. Taina's grandfather stares at him, unable to understand his power. The bandit leader demands to know what happened to his men, but Satoshi dismisses them as disposable tools and casts another spell. The bandits laugh at the black spheres until they strike them with lightning and burn them like coal. Satoshi reveals his power and orders the terrified survivors to move aside. When the leader demands a fair fight, Satoshi agrees and attacks him with his sword. The bandit screams as his hands fly away, while Taina's grandfather marvels at Satoshi's speed. Furious at their crimes, Satoshi refuses to spare any bandit. After defeating them, he wonders how to return home. Taina's grandfather thanks him and introduces himself as the former Archduke of the Magical Kingdom. The Archduke studies Satoshi, who explains that he is lost and searching for a city. Although told his power would be valuable anywhere, Satoshi claims he is old and only wants a peaceful place to live. When asked his name, Satoshi introduces himself by his game nickname, Zelos Merlin, and calls himself a great sage. The old man invites him into the carriage and offers a reward. Satoshi requests land near the city where he can live quietly and grow medicinal herbs. Inside, he meets Taina, who introduces herself as Celestine. Seeing her magic book, Satoshi asks whether she is a mage. Celestine admits she is only a beginner and struggles to use magic. The Archduke has investigated every possible cause, while Satoshi suspects the problem lies in her spell formulas. Celestine shows him the book, and Satoshi discovers numerous omissions and mistakes. He explains that its inefficient spells consume so much mana that only advanced mages could use them. Satoshi offers to correct the formulas, realizing the faulty book made Celestine wrongly believe she lacked talent. He uses his abilities to rewrite the spells. Satoshi asks Celestine to try again, explaining that he reduced the mana cost and connected an external power source. When she becomes confused, he compares magic to controlling skills in a video game. Satoshi considers creating a proper textbook. The simple magic of this world impresses Celestine but makes the Archduke regret losing such talent. Satoshi repeats that he dislikes conflict and assures Celestine she can succeed if she stops fearing magic. He begins with light magic to teach mana control, which may eventually allow silent casting. Celestine eagerly attempts the spell. A glowing sphere and flame appear above her finger, allowing her to use magic for the first time. Excited, she enlarges the flame, but Satoshi warns her to stay focused. He explains that practice will improve her spells, though she must replenish her mana. Her grandfather celebrates her success. Satoshi recommends strengthening her body against hostile magic and notices her exceptional patience and perseverance. He offers her another skill and decides to rewrite the entire book for easier study. As the carriage approaches civilization, Satoshi describes killing the wyvern, astonishing the Archduke. He invents parts of his story to answer their questions but refuses to reveal his status. Celestine suspects his level while the Archduke realizes Satoshi could destroy a country. Satoshi asks them to keep it secret and is surprised when Celestine calls him master. She asks Zero to become her magic tutor. Satoshi accepts, though Celestine is so excited that he must remind her to sleep. He questions his decision, but knows it is too late to withdraw. With 2 months of summer vacation remaining, Satoshi plans Celestine's training and worries about the academy using such a flawed textbook. A guard suddenly warns of danger. A high-level bloody bear emerges, and Satoshi restrains it with steel bond magic. Since the bear survives, Satoshi asks Celestine to attack and promises to supply her with mana. Her first spell wounds the bear but fails to kill it, so he tells her to cast another. The second spell defeats the animal, but Celestine faints from exhaustion. Satoshi sees that her skills increased during the battle. When she awakens, he tells her about her new level. He considers finding more creatures for experiments, but Celestine refuses. Watching secretly, the Archduke celebrates her progress before they continue onward. The carriage reaches a vast city, which the Archduke identifies as the territory's largest trade center. Its valuable position between mountains and a river caused many wars over ownership. The old man explains that he is a retired duke. His son now rules, and Celestine is one of his many heirs. Satoshi asks where to sell his monster stones and reveals his collection, shocking the Archduke with its value. Satoshi vaguely explains that he obtained them through complex magic. At the castle, servants welcome them while Celestine leaves with her luggage. Before departing, she asks how Satoshi casts without a wand. He mentions his metal hail ring, a monster that consumes metal. The Archduke introduces Satoshi to the servants Dandy and Misako. He thanks Satoshi for helping Taina use magic, then sends him away with Dandy. Satoshi is delighted by his peaceful and luxurious room. Uncomfortable with such treatment, he accepts Dendy's offer of a bath and displays proper etiquette. Impressed, the servant assumes Satoshi comes from nobility and shows him where to change. Outside, Dendy unexpectedly meets Misaka, Celestine's maid. Satoshi enters the bath and finds Celestine naked inside. Later, he asks Misaka to show him the library. She apologizes for the bathroom incident. Satoshi remembers the Archduke's fury after learning what happened. Misaka apologizes again and leads him to the library. Using his abilities to read multiple languages, Satoshi studies its vast collection and discovers records of a vanished magical civilization. He learns how magical knowledge declined and combines modern symbols with knowledge from his previous life to plan Celestine's lessons. Comparing the books with the game, Satoshi realizes he is dangerously overpowered and decides to avoid unnecessary trouble. However, his real-world knowledge continues generating powerful skills, making him wonder why the game-like world has not collapsed. Celestine is embarrassed by the bathroom incident, but Misaka assures her that Satoshi does not know about her feelings. Misaka warns Celestine not to imitate Satoshi's overwhelming magic. Celestine explains that her teacher now seeks a peaceful life away from war. Misaka says people change with age, then refuses to reveal her own age. Celestine and Satoshi begin their lesson awkwardly before he introduces magical symbols and surprises her by deciphering them. Satoshi explains that understanding how magical symbols are constructed makes spells easier, especially when treating them like puzzles or translating them into another language. He then teaches her how mana powers magic and shows her a spell he created. The spell can erase the surrounding space instantly. When Celestine becomes frightened, Satoshi warns her to use magic responsibly and never let others control her mana. He explains that magic can serve peaceful purposes depending on the path its user chooses. Satoshi asks what kind of mage Celestine wants to become. She knows she does not want to use magic only for war but cannot answer yet. Satoshi gives her time and ends the lesson. Celestine considers Satoshi an ideal mage until her grandfather asks about the lesson. She explains that Satoshi allowed her to choose her own magical path, unlike academy students competing to become the mage's successor. Celestine repeats his belief that magic can protect or destroy peace, while many mages seek war for rewards and recognition. The next day, Satoshi summons a low-level mud golem for mana training and warns Celestine to retreat if she runs out. The Archduke notes that knights should protect mages after their mana is exhausted, though conflict between them often prevents cooperation. Celestine takes a combat stance and attacks the golem. She defeats the first one easily, showing experience with close combat and possible natural talent. Celestine continues striking the targets, but Satoshi refuses to make the training easy. He summons more golems to give her practical combat experience without placing her life in real danger. Celestine gathers her mana and prepares Power Impulse. Remembering that the core must be destroyed, she uses a water spell successfully. Satoshi finds her reaction cute. Another golem grabs her leg from the mud and knocks her down. Satoshi warns her to stay alert and reminds her that failure is part of learning. Celestine complains that he is strict, but Satoshi explains that training allows mistakes without the risk of death. He promises to teach her one of his original spells after she improves her level and skills. Celestine agrees so loudly that she startles him, while her grandfather excuses her nervousness. The Archduke asks about the spell, and Satoshi invites him to attack. The old man casts Destructive Dragon Flame. Satoshi blocks it with Divine Silver Shield, which can change shape and become a sword. He explains that the spell consumes little mana and can switch between defense and attack, though it still has weaknesses. The Archduke looks forward to Celestine learning it. For 2 weeks, Satoshi teaches Celestine, farms, studies in the library, and practices fencing before deciding to visit the city. Dandy gives Zelos a city map and warns him about dangerous areas. Zelos is amazed by the crowded city and heads first to a magic shop. Although the shop makes him uneasy, he needs money and enters. Zelos presents his magic stones for sale. The clerk suspects he obtained them from the dark green forest. She accuses him of theft because an ordinary mage could not survive there. Offended, Zelos explains his journey and says he is staying at Lord Creston's mansion. When she continues doubting him, Zelos warns that insulting him may have consequences. The manager interrupts their argument. The manager scolds the clerk for accusing a customer, while she argues that Zelos' shabby clothing makes him look unlike a mage. The manager apologizes, offers compensation, and orders the clerk to complete the transaction quickly. Zelos receives an enormous payment and bonus, then leaves while sensing that the manager is dangerous. Afterward, the manager berates the clerk for provoking such a powerful mage and wonders how he knows the former duke. Zelos studies market prices until hunger leads him to a meat seller. He enjoys the meat and learns that metal prices have risen because demons seized the mines. Despite the country's peaceful appearance, Zelos notices tension between knights and mages before continuing through the city. He buys tobacco, rolls a cigarette, and wanders into an unfamiliar district. Realizing it is the old city Dandy warned him about, Zelos prepares to leave but senses someone watching. Several children approach and ask him for meat. After learning they live in an orphanage, Zelos agrees to share but asks to meet their guardian first. The children lead him to a mansion, where a handsome young man is pressuring a girl to become his woman. She refuses, but he boasts that he will become the next mage's successor. Zelos watches as the children discuss his behavior. The young man claims he always gets what he wants. The girl accuses him of ruining the orphanage and isolating her to force her submission. He threatens to expel her and the children from the city, but she calls him an unworthy ruler. Zelos decides to intervene. Rather than using force, Zelos publicly remarks that such behavior has destroyed the man's future prospects, and the crowd agrees. He mocks the man for demanding loyalty on a first meeting, warns the children not to imitate him, and says he would make a terrible duke. The crowd recognizes the man as Shuate, the duke's son. As Shuate realizes he has been humiliated, Zelos abruptly changes the subject to food. The girl asks why Zelos defended her. He explains that he followed hungry children there, and she reveals that Shuate caused the orphanage's financial problems. Zelos offers the children all the meat he bought and asks where to place it. Furious, Shuate boasts about his noble birth and superior red robes. Zelos warns that judging enemies by clothing can lead to fatal mistakes. Shuate again declares his lineage and casts a spell at Zelos. Zelos parries the blow and says it's dangerous to use that spell in the city center. The boy provokes him into continuing the fight, but he says he won't need magic to fight him. Shuate asks his friends to help him buy him time, but Zelos warns them not to move. His appearance is terrifying. The hero evaluates the skills of his opponents, and they are amazed by his skill. Shuate is enraged and decides to cast a powerful spell to burn the hero and the surrounding area of the city. Warnings have no effect on him. Zelos analyzes the magic Shuate gave him and uses another spell to counter it. Finally, the hero performs a kick, killing the enemy. Shuate is shocked and amazed that his spell had no effect on Zelos, who reveals that he lives in the former duke's mansion and asks if he is Shuate's grandfather. The boy kneels in humiliation, and Zelos asks him to get up, saying that this will be a lesson for him. Zelos tells Shuate he'll definitely tell his grandfather what happened. The boy apologizes and says he'll do anything to keep his grandfather from finding out. Their conversation is interrupted by a girl who's been trying to examine the hero's skills the whole time. He explains that his skills aren't visible because he uses magic extensively. The girl apologizes for trying to look at his stats without his permission. Zelos asks her not to worry and says he wouldn't mind looking at hers either. The hero notices the girl's figure, and those around him try to accuse him of indecent thoughts. He justifies this by citing the nature of a man. But the guys standing next to him deny that they're not interested in good looks. The girl is embarrassed by being called beautiful. She invites the hero to the shelter to leave the meat he gave her. Zelos notices the soil in the garden, which seems dead to him, and becomes thoughtful. She asks if he can visit them tomorrow. At the Duke's residence, Stein's father scolds him for disgracing the family by starting a fight with his grandfather's guest and using a family heirloom in it. The Duke asks his father who Zelos is, and he readily shares the information that he is Celestine's mentor, teaching her magic. His son and grandson are surprised by this turn of events. The Archduke shares that Celestine is enjoying her lessons and is already using her magical powers. His son says it would be nice if a mage of such legendary skill joined them. The old man asks his son to pay more attention to Celestine, but he says he's busy with more important matters, like work. Stein is indignant that his father reproaches him for using his magical powers. They quarrel. During their next lesson, Zelos decides to show Celestine magic that improves people's lives. They go to the orphanage. The girl sees a dead land and doubts magic will help here. The teacher explains the types of magic and how to use them. Celestine doesn't believe him and says that it's too high-ranking magic, to which Zelos replies that he can use healing magic. The hero says he wants to keep this between them because he doesn't want to become a target for the Inquisition. Celestine asks about Zelos' national heritage and his attitude toward the divine miracle. He answers ambiguously, but makes clear his negative attitude toward the god. He says that God is his enemy, and if it weren't for him, he wouldn't be trapped in this world. Celestine is frightened, and he suggests continuing. At that moment, a gang of orphans emerges from around the corner with a ton of questions. Zelos asks them to move away and uses an earth control spell that purifies the earth. Lucerys, a girl from the shelter, watches him with admiration. Zelos continues to use magic to create a fence. He tells the children they will be able to grow vegetables and herbs and sell them to make money. Lucerys is amazed and doesn't know how to thank him. Celestine also admires him, but the hero says there's still room for improvement. Using magic for everything would be wrong because people also need to contribute their knowledge. Lutherus asks him if he could use his knowledge in other fields, excluding war, and the hero replies that he doesn't want to become a tool of war because people might misuse his abilities. She agrees. Zelos says he's done the first stage and he's leaving the rest to Lord Creston. He's simplified the task, now it's up to his superiors. Lutherus considers who to delegate the rest of the work to. The hero suggests sending the children into the fields so they can grow up and become responsible and learn new things. The girl is amazed by his foresight, but the children are indignant. Celestine takes out the seeds she took from the castle to plant in the cultivated land. The children continue to complain about being forced to work. Zelos asks them to clearly state their concerns, demonstrating another magical skill. The children are frightened and agree. Meanwhile, in the Duke's mansion, the battle between father and son has come to an end. During her next lesson, Celestine fights mud golems and thinks about how she could only watch her classmates perform magic before. But now she's using her skills to fight the enemy herself. She remembers that the key to fighting a golem is destroying its core. Zelos watches the girl and thinks that she has already achieved a lot. Celestine uses the strength enhancement skill, and Zelos is surprised at how long it took her to learn this spell. He praises her and says she's ready for real missions in the forest, where monsters roam. The Archduke intervenes, believing it's too early and dangerous for her. He conjures up images of monsters attacking Celestine and talks about organizing a military guard to be ready. Celestine begs him not to. Zelos thinks Creston's love for his granddaughter is too great and suggests they start by working on new equipment. He suggests using the leather to craft armor. Creston snaps at the hero, thinking he's planning to use his skills for something inappropriate against Celestine again. The hero denies this. Ultimately, they agree that the armor's creation should be left to the artisans, and Zelos will simply finish it. Schweit watches them from the castle window, thinking that he didn't expect such a display of power from Celestine. She was a rather whiny and downtrodden girl, and now she could give him competition, and all because of Zelos. Misaka approaches him unnoticed, startling him when she greets him. She overhears his thoughts and offers him information. Misaka discusses the use of mana Zelos, speaking about the hierarchy of the monsters he creates. Schweit is amazed by his power, and the maid agrees, saying he still has much to learn. The guy decides to ask the maid's age, to which he receives an aggressive response and apologizes. Schweit approaches Zelos and asks to become his teacher because he wants to become even stronger. Zelos ambivalently refuses and reminisces about playing a computer game with his group. He tells how he used magic to torture people and destroy territories. He wonders why he was called a sage. Schweit responds vaguely to his words but remains standing, awaiting an answer to his request. Zelos asks Schweit about his goal, and he replies that he wants to become a hero and leave his mark on history. He interprets the young man's words as meaning he doesn't yet understand what he's striving for. Schweit speaks again of heroism, mentioning his grandfather and his desire to surpass him. Zelos agrees to become his teacher and gives him guidance to begin mastering his lessons. He says the first lesson will be tomorrow, where Schweit will work with Celestine. Schweit agrees to all the conditions and leaves inspired. The hero isn't sure his position is conducive to teaching anyone. The next day, Schweit and Celestine fight the mud golems, but they do not act together but separately, each thinking about their own goal. Celestine tries to be cautious while Schweit goes all out. Zelos watches them and realizes he's made a good point of increasing the mission's difficulty. The hero tries to explain to them that they should work in pairs, as this is a common occurrence in the field, but the young people quarrel and Schweit insults Celestine with a memory from the past. Lord Creston observes the training process and is amazed by Celestine's abilities. He and the hero discuss her interaction with Schweit, mentioning that he is too emotional. And Schweit proves that what was said about him is true, using a spell that doesn't work against golems. Celestine warns him to be careful. They argue again because they can't communicate. Celestine tells Schweit that he's in her way and dragging her back. Zelos is still confident that they have a chance, and Lord Creston cannot take his eyes off his granddaughter. The teacher increases the training time by 2 hours, and his students are surprised by this decision. He explains his decision by saying that on the battlefield, no one will stop for a mage to replenish their mana or rest. Schweit welcomes this opportunity. Celestine convinces herself that she can handle it, just like Shuei. The boy is happy about the new educational opportunities because he was not taught this at school, and the girl is ready to do everything to be worthy of being called her teacher's student. Watching from the sidelines, Duke Creston asks Zelos if what's happening is normal. Zelos replies that he can heal the wounded if necessary, but they must be prepared for anything. He once again gives an inspiring speech to his students about how their lives depend solely on their own abilities. He speaks of the importance of maintaining clarity of mind and feeling inner strength. The pair of teenagers continue to fight while Zelos talks about the impossibility of retreat and their self-confidence. They might lose in training, but that shouldn't happen in a real fight. Shuei and Celestine are ready for battle. The mud golems attack them, and they respond by repelling their attacks. The battle ends, and Shuei and Celestine lie exhausted on the ground. Zelos comments that on a real battlefield, this fight could have gone on much longer. Despite their fatigue, the students are delighted at the opportunity to experience real-world conditions firsthand. Zelos says he's prepared a potion for them to restore their mana. The teenagers happily drink the prepared potion from wine bottles under Dandy's surprised gaze, and the hero decides it's time to look at the mandrakes they've planted in the orphanage. Lucerys greets him with shouts and tells him she urgently needs his help. She grabs his hand and accidentally brushes his chest. He enjoys the touch. They go into the garden and hear the cries of the mandrakes, which are pulled out of the ground by the children. The children are delighted by the screams and want more. Zelos says that the mandrake scream doesn't kill, but it does cause emotional distress. Because the mandrakes grow so quickly, they could completely overrun the orphanage, so he decides to help the children and harvest all the fruit. The mandrakes are indignant. The harvest lasts several hours. Together with the children and Lucerys, the hero overcomes this challenge. The children worry about selling their harvest while the adults recover from the emotional damage. Thanks to their hard work, the orphanage's finances are quickly restored, which leads to attempts by thieves to break into their fields. And the kids manage to chase them away or catch them and get a reward. The lessons of Celestine and Shuei continue despite the fact that the hero often thinks about mandrakes and the possibility of controlling their effect on a person. The teacher explains to the students the principle of mana use and how it's possible to use too much of it. Its amount can be calculated using a formula. Shuei thinks he can't stand the teacher, but he's very interested in his explanations and the lessons themselves. Zelos continues his explanation of the magical formula and the limitless use of ideas for the specific purposes pursued by a particular magician. The magician's skills determine the complexity of the formula used. Shuei again considers casting bad magic and asks about it. The teacher replies that using a particular technique is the magician's choice. Shuei addresses his sister, saying she's changed. Celestine confirms this, saying she feels different after starting training with Zelos, and she doesn't want to return to the academy because she can learn so much more with him. She wants to ask Shuei about her other brother, but he abruptly shuts her up, saying he doesn't want to hear about him. Celestine realizes that she's the only one who's changed. The Archduke brings new armor for Celestine, ignoring the fact that Shuei also needs new equipment. He's only doing this for his granddaughter. Creston thinks he'd like to see her as a bride, and it would be nice if Zeros became her groom. He asks not to interfere in family matters. Celestine emerges dressed in her new gear. Grandfather marvels at his granddaughter's beauty. He explains what each piece of clothing is made of, and Zeros is amazed at the cost of the new equipment. The Archduke responds that no one was hurt and he's almost recouped his expenses. Creston's son introduces himself to Zelos and says that his father stole precious stones from the vault to sell them and framed the guards, providing himself with an alibi. He asks his father to clean up the mess he's made, mentioning that he's going crazy when it comes to Celestine. The hero asks about the stolen item, and when the Duke mentions magical wyvern stones, he offers a trade. The Duke is amazed by the quantity and quality of the stones offered to him, and Zelos tells Creston he'll be in his debt for helping him escape punishment for theft. The hero is offered a way to repay his kindness, and he again mentions the plot for free use. They offer him a plot of land behind the Church of Lamentation. The hero thanks them, but realizing that's the name of the orphanage, he thinks of the mandrakes again. 3 days later, everyone is ready to march into the forest. Creston is outraged that his son has allocated only 15 knights to guard Celestine. Zelos, cigarette in hand, is musing about how the mages are preoccupied with other things right now. He's interrupted by one of the guards who asks why he needs a sword if he's a magician. The hero answers the question by saying that his advantage in close combat hasn't been abolished, and that with his sword he can avoid death if his mana suddenly runs out. This will increase his chances of survival. They get acquainted. The knight introduces himself as Aleph. At this moment, Celestine emerges from the castle with a huge sack of things. Zelos points out that luggage size is crucial, to which Celestine counters that every item she's taken is necessary. The hero uses his inventory skill, reducing the size of his items, and says he doesn't know how this magic works because he's not a god. The Archduke almost cries as he bids his granddaughter farewell, asking her to take care of herself as if he had taught her magic. Zelos silently resents it. Along the way, Shwait asks why the hero asked his father for a piece of land if he hates people who abuse their position. His father replies that it's perfectly normal to work in the fields for a little money. The hero himself is thinking about wanting a house because he can't find a job or the opportunity to earn enough money to live on. Shwait apologizes for asking. 2 days later, they reach the forest. Zelos builds a wall around the camp and summons a familiar. When Shwait asks what he's doing, he explains that the familiar is useful for reconnaissance, allowing one to see everything from the air. The hero asks the boy why he called him master, and he sheepishly explains that he's learning from him. Zelos suggests trying to use magic to create a familiar. Celestine and Shwait agree and create small birds with which they can experience the feeling of flight and see what is happening on the ground from above. Zelos notices a group of orcs nearby and goes to the knight to tell him about what he saw. Aleph immediately calls the army to be ready for battle, and the hero is amazed at their speed, which pleases the commander. The hero's excitement frightens Aleph a little when he says that it's time to start the hunt. Celestine watches the enemy and analyzes what's happening. Zelos briefly explains the orcs and how they found them, then says they simply need to be wiped out. The hero creates a punishing arrow spell and directs it beyond the camp wall. Besides Zelos, there are other people in the world of sword and magic who were reincarnated from the real world. A 14-year-old girl from an ordinary family, where both parents only loved her younger brother, and she had nowhere to turn but to a computer game. She reincarnates in the forest, wondering rhetorically about the location. Looking around, she realizes where she's ended up. She rejoices and reveals her game status. Her name is now Iris and she's a mage. Her stats are the same as they were during the game, but her appearance is slightly different. She decides to change her clothes first, but receives a message from the goddess of the wind, who tells her about a series of suicides and her reincarnation. Iris is overjoyed by this and hopes for a new and exciting life. But first, she decides to find a place where there are people. An hour later, with thoughts of food and the monsters that might appear at night, she comes across a village surrounded by a high fence. Standing at the gate, she shouts and asks to be let in and share some food because she's lost. The two men agree to her request. Iris only considers the consequences of her actions later when she realizes she might have stumbled into a bandit den. But the villagers reassure her, explaining that the fence is there to protect her from goblin attacks. They talk about the hierarchy and types of monsters, and Iris, realizing that she is a mage, offers them her help in exchange for a place to stay and food. The men discuss the two mercenaries from the city, but they all agree to Iris's offer. She rejoices and asks when the goblins will arrive to show the villagers what she's capable of. From the top comes a cry of danger in the form of goblins approaching the erected walls. Iris is delighted with the opportunity and runs to where they said the attack was coming from, wanting to use her knowledge. The girl throws out of her head her past knowledge about goblins, saying that she is ready to arrange their total annihilation. The goblins attack and Iris sees two more girls fighting. She asks the villagers if they are mercenaries from the city. The villagers are mesmerized by the mercenaries' appearance, which angers Iris, who points out that there's more to a girl than just looks. She uses her ice blast skill to destroy the enemy. Iris uses magic to seal the hole in the wall, but this doesn't stop the goblins' advance. The villagers come to the rescue. Iris is sickened by her first real kill, but she's brought back to her senses by the cry that the destroyed goblins were merely reconnaissance. She again recalls the goblin hierarchy to understand what magic to use to fight them. There are too many goblins, and Iris knows she can't handle them. She doesn't plan on dying, so she eagerly rushes into battle. uses magical spells that freeze goblins in place, giving the villagers an advantage in killing them. While the villagers fire arrows at the monster army, Iris casts a tornado spell, destroying the goblins. However, this isn't enough, as the village is under attack from all sides. Iris searches for the leader of the army and realizes that the goblins are just a diversionary tactic. She manages to find the leader of the pack, who is much larger than his relatives. The villagers flee in fear, leaving Iris alone. Mercenary girls from the city come to the rescue. Iris uses magic to cover herself when she sees she is not alone. She meets Jane and Renaa and asks them to rely on her magic for support. Iris uses Flame Blast and destroys the goblin general. The villagers rejoice, and the girl analyzes everything she's done and seen. The goblins don't disappear like in the game, and their powers are quite primitive. The mercenaries and warriors search for stones that should have been left over from the goblin killings, and Iris runs into the bushes. The smell of roasting goblin meat makes the girl vomit. She talks to Jane, who asks where Iris is from. The girl explains that she's looking for a city. Jane offers to be her guide. Renaa's voice interrupts their conversation. In the morning, Jane searches for Renaa and then scolds her for pestering her younger brother. Thus begins Iris's new journey with the mercenary girls. 5 days later, they reach the city where Lucerus's orphanage is located. She is currently observing the training of a girl who is unable to leave. Lucerus mentions Zelos in conversation and is embarrassed that a training girl assumed she was in love with him. Lucerus goes out into the city. She recalls her hungry past. Left an orphan, she could have died, but a man from a nursing home took her in off the street, and for the first time, she had a chance to survive. From that moment on, Lucerus decided that she would help people who found themselves in difficult life situations and went to the temple to study. But after graduation, she decided not to stay there to serve the gods, deciding that divine and magical powers are the same. Lost in her thoughts, she doesn't notice Renaa calling her name. Lucerus inquires about Yena's condition and whereabouts. Renaa tells her she's feeling unwell. Lucerus decides to stop by the herbalist's shop to buy some medicine for Jane, but he doesn't have time to buy what he needs because the supply has already sold out. The girl gets upset, but Zelos calls out to her, and she becomes afraid of him. The hero asks her why she came to the herbalist's shop, and she shares that her friend is ill. Zelos asks about the symptoms and says it resembles a disease transmitted by the goblin. He says the victim should die within 3 days of infection. Lucerus is frightened but asks if the mage has a cure for this affliction, to which Zelos answers affirmatively and gives her a jar of the medicine. The girl runs away as Zelos argues with the herbalist. Arriving at her destination, Lucerus encounters Iris, who is monitoring Jane's progress. She's already starting to break out in a rash and urgently needs some medicine. The girl gives her friend a pill and watches her recover. Iris is surprised by the quick effect. Lucerus asks Iris about Jane's injury. Iris confirms her suspicions and asks where Lucerus got this medicine. Lucerus tells her about a mage she knows. Iris dreams of joining the great sage's party and traveling with him. Iris runs away and Lucerus doesn't have time to ask her who she is. Jane gradually comes to her senses while Lucerus watches her sleep. A few days later, Jane wakes up and tells Lutherie that she needs to go, but Lutherie refuses, saying that she needs to fully recover. Their conversation takes on a nostalgic tone, and they compare themselves to their younger selves. They touch on their faith in God and laugh at the idea of having to fear the Inquisition. Lucerus puts Jane to bed and asks her to rest. They reminisce again. Meanwhile, a battle rages in the forest. The hero and his small army are battling the orcs. Zelos calmly watches the battle, occasionally calling on magic to aid Aleph. He also watches the interactions between Schwait and Celestine, sometimes assisting them with spells or arrows fired from a bow. The combatants are perplexed by who they're fighting, but every soldier's level increases. They're happy about this, despite the battle's exhaustion. A high-level chimera emerges from the bushes. The soldiers are startled, but Zelos calmly uses his magic skill, reassuring them that he can handle it. He casts a spell of chains on the chimera and asks the soldiers and his disciples to attack it, because the magic will not last long. They defeat the monster and their level rises again, but they immediately realize that Zelos has something to do with it all. Zelos explains that he trains them this way because by leveling up they'll be able to fight longer. But sooner or later their strength will run out and they'll have to flee because he can't always be by their side. The soldiers apologize and the students listen attentively. Aleph instructs the soldiers that they need to take the initiative to protect the people and protect Zelos by following his instructions. The battle continues. The soldiers feel their physical strength and know that they must become warriors. Zelos in turn helps them with magical abilities so they can attack. Shuate and Celestine begin to communicate with each other. Shuate asks his sister what she is hiding from him, and she says that all the conditions must be met in order to learn the same magic as Zelos. Celestine briefly explains the skills and levels of magic, and Shuate gloats that after learning from Zelos, he could be stronger than his brother. Celestine tries to dissuade him. Zelos watches them, thinking about how the brother and sister could eventually become close. The army examines the fallen monsters and considers how to use the materials obtained from their kills. Zelos, meanwhile, is thinking about his desire for food from his past life. Their journey continues. The soldiers are hungry, but they hold on. They come across the ruined walls of a village. Hoping to find food there, they find a passage, but are afraid to go into it because they see many corpses. Zelos rushes forward and asks everyone not to move, because he sees a huge worm eating the carcass of an animal. He tells the soldiers that this monster eats everything in its path. Its level is too high, but he can deal with it. The soldiers apologize for not being able to help him due to their low level. The mage draws his sword and sarcastically asks the worm for permission to kill. Using magic spells, he deals with several worms that crawled out from underground. The soldiers rejoice and praise the mage as he studies the monster's body, pondering its level and evolution. If his thoughts are correct, what's happening will be different from the game. The hungry warriors ask Zelos what they should do without food, and he suggests using an old, proven method that he himself has not used for a long time. Those around him are perplexed, and Zelos says that he wants to share his survival experience with them. After 2 days of hell, the soldiers were utterly exhausted from all they had done, fighting and defending themselves. But their skill level and combat skills had noticeably improved. Zelos encourages his troops when they tell him about the missing food. The soldiers promise to kill anyone responsible for the theft. The army stumbles upon a troop of monkeys, and Zelos recalls his first visit to this forest when one of the males attempted to violate his virginity. Celestine is perplexed as to why the male would set his sights on a man. Zelos explains matriarchy to his student and asks her to take a closer look at the ape species, which possess both male and female characteristics. Shuate is surprised. He and Celestine track down the leader of the ape group. The mage checks the monkey's level and, thinking they can handle it, asks them to attack on cue. The army is angry about the food theft, but he urges them to calm down. Aleph asks Celestine to give the signal for action and you trigger the flare. Shuate helps her with the wind. The soldiers attack the troop of monkeys. Zelos observes the events and analyzes the situation. The magic has no effect on the female leader and she attacks the soldiers. She scatters them to the sides, and they realize that her size and level are too great for them. The hero uses chain magic and gives the command to attack. Aleph thanks the mage and directs the soldiers toward the female leader, who is ready to break the chains that bind her. Celestine and Shuate work together to support Zelos' magic as the soldiers go into battle with the thought that they can do anything if they try. Zelos' disciples use various spells, but they are too weak for the monster's tough hide. They change tactics. The female monkey breaks the chains, which frightens the army, but Zelos remains calm, thinking about the small nuisance in the form of a brutality. When the monkey flies straight at the hero, he uses the lightning sphere spell and it knocks the beast back. The audience looks at Zelos, who seems embarrassed by the attention, eager to get this matter over with. A pack of wolves emerges from the bushes toward them. The soldiers are frightened again because the wolves are too powerful for them. Zelos assumes the animals are drawn to the scent of blood and is assisting the soldiers with magic. He finds the leader of the pack and says that he will deal with him, leaving the remaining monsters to his students. Zelos casts a divine silver wall spell which strikes the wolf pack leader. His students are amazed by his power. Lighting a cigarette, the hero thinks that it would be nice to try wolf meat because it looks delicious. The remaining soldiers easily dispatch the remaining wolves as most of them flee after killing the pack leader. The army returns to camp and settles down to rest, while Zelos remains on guard duty. In the middle of the night, he hears a noise. Soldiers are fighting a new monster, which reveals its characteristics to Zelos. The hero discusses the monster's ability to copy what he eats. He uses magic to get rid of a cannibal copycat that attacked the camp. Zelos saves the soldiers again and is rewarded with a magical seed, which is an important material for creating homunculi. The bandits have seized civilians. They've taken children hostage and are ordering the girls to undress, threatening them with the idea that killing people is nothing to them. The girls, frightened by these words, began to undress. The knights, tired after the recent battle, seeing the cart, are happy that they will return to the city safe and sound. The protagonist chuckles at their joy, teasing them. One of the knights notices that something is wrong. He points to his comrade at the people lying nearby, and together they look closely and notice that these people are dead. The knight touched the corpses and declared them still warm. Zelos told his comrades that the bandits were likely nearby and immediately asked his comrades to send out reconnaissance. The blonde immediately finds them and tells her comrades where the bandits are. The knights immediately begin to wonder whether they can handle it, as they were already very tired. The other knights are determined despite being tired and are ready to engage in battle with the bandits. Commander Aleph declares that he is ready for battle, but at that moment half of the knight students run away. The hero and his comrades quickly find the bandits' camp. Commander Aleph asks Zelos to distract the bandits while the knights surround the bandit camp. The hero agrees but declares that if danger suddenly arises, he will kill all the bandits himself. The bandit leader approaches two girls and begins to taunt them. At one point, he declares that he's killed all the men, but now he expects the girls to be of some use. One of the girls, Renee, agrees to all the conditions for her life. The brunette looks at Renee hopelessly, but at that moment Zelen appears and asks the bandits for directions to the city. The bandit is stunned by the stranger's audacity and asks him if he understands the situation. The hero convinces the bandits that he is one of them and advises them to stick together. The bandit doubts Zelos, and he asks the bandit to give him girls for an experiment. The bandit thinks Zelos is a dark mage and will cause trouble. Crossing his arms behind his back, the bandit invites Zelos to join him. The bandit begins to distract the hero with conversation in every possible way, while one of the bandits slowly approaches from behind. The bandit swings his knife. The hero reacts quickly and kills the bandit. The hero begins to feel indignant at the bandit's meanness. The hero tells the bandits that they will now become his experiment. The leader immediately tries to explain, but Zelos stops him, saying that he saw his hand gesture. The hero begins casting the Tearing Petals spell, after which the bandits begin to die. The leader is amazed at the mage's power, surprised that the spell worked even without singing. The hero condemns them for judging people by their clothes. The bandits try to escape, but the hero kills them one by one. The hero sarcastically asks the bandit leader about the reduction in his bandit numbers. The leader, meanwhile, tries to figure out who stands before him. The hero tells him that it doesn't matter, because the bandit will soon be killed anyway. The bandit takes the brunette hostage, holding a knife to her throat, thinking that this will stop Zelos. But the hero uses the ice bullet spell and instantly kills the bandit. The brunette exclaims in horror, saying that even a hostage doesn't stop Zelos. The hero menacingly declares that he wants to experiment not only on the bandits but on everyone there. Suddenly, the bandits become ill and start screaming, asking what Zelos did to them. The hero tells them he used a mass poison. With his last breath, the bandit tells Zelos that he is a bastard and is dying, but Zelos only smirks at his words. At this time, the knights run into the camp to fight the bandits. The hero notices that the children have started coughing because of the poison and tries to fix it. Commander Aleph thanks Zelos, because thanks to him they were able to quickly find and deal with the bandits. The hero notices a runic forest staff, which can only be obtained through donations. VRRPG tells him she got it from a beginner's gacha. At that moment, the brunette and Zelos stop in surprise. The hero and the brunette simultaneously ask each other in surprise about donations and gacha, but suddenly stop. That night, while Zelos was on guard duty, a brunette approached him. She asked if he was awake, to which Zelos replied that he couldn't relax and sleep while on guard duty. The brunette asked if he could talk to her. The hero looked at the brunette, smiled, and said he wasn't going to go on a date with her, saying he wasn't a fan of Lolican. The brunette, annoyed, tried to explain that wasn't what she wanted to talk about. The hero asks not to dwell on his words, as he's simply being flooded with memories of an arranged marriage. The brunette explains that she didn't have any other clothes, which is why she looks like that. She asks Zelos if he's from the same world as her and who he was in that world. The hero, lost in his memories, begins to explain that he worked in cybersecurity. The brunette is fascinated by Zelos. However, Zelos announces that he was fired from there. The brunette, curious, asks why Zelos was fired. He begins to explain that he had a sister who spent 2 years of inheritance money, then spent her husband's money without permission. The brunette, dumbfounded, asks what happened next, to which Zelos explains that his sister divorced her husband. The hero continues to tell how his sister moved into Zelos' company dorm, started ordering food in his name and stealing jewelry under the guise of cleaning. The brunette asks Zelos about his savings, to which the hero replies that he didn't trust his sister and hid all his savings in the bank. The brunette, surprised, asks why he didn't kick her out, and Zelos tells her he tried to do something. Whatever Zelos did, his sister pretended to be good and made him look bad, the hero says. He managed to get rid of his sister after he was transferred to another region, but after some time, his sister snuck into the dorm and stole the program Zelos was developing. Afterward, his sister married the head of a competing company. The hero explains how his program was announced by competitors first, and how his company won a lawsuit proving the program was stolen. Despite this, Zelos was still fired. The hero tells the brunette that if his sister were here, he would kill her without a second thought. The hero calls the brunette little girl, to which the brunette, offended, says her name is Iris. Iris asks the hero's name, to which the hero tells her, but upon hearing the name, Iris, dumbfounded, repeats it, calling him Black Destroyer. Zelos repeats the mention of the destroyer in bewilderment, and Iris begins listing his nicknames. Zelos says he had no idea he inspired so much terror in those around him. The hero asks Iris for her opinion about the world they found themselves in. Zelos shares his opinion that the world is similar to the game Might and Magic. He asks her if it's possible to somehow influence the structure of this world. The hero shares with Iris his suspicions that someone might be watching them. Zelos has often felt as if someone was watching him, but he nonetheless closes the subject, not allowing it to develop further. Iris shares her fears with Zelos about the possibility that this world is ruled by a goddess. Zelos asks her about the game's creator, but neither he nor Iris could remember them, which Zelos found very strange. The hero tells Iris that he has a wound from 30 years ago, but he doesn't remember how he got it. Iris, surprised, asks the hero's age. Upon hearing his answer, she notes that he is older than her father. Zelos gives the stone to his disciples. The blonde begins to look at him in confusion and asks what kind of stone it is. The hero explains that it's one of the stones he created himself and that he's bestowing his power upon them as he promised. The blonde and her brother begin to diligently study their stones. The hero explains to them that they can use their powers however they wish, and that, if they wish, they can use this magic to become invisible. The blonde and the guy start talking excitedly to each other about how cool it would be to use the new magic as soon as possible. At this time, Zelos is immersed in his thoughts and thinks about youth, begins to ponder rejuvenation spells, and decides that it is still good for him to remain a middle-aged man. In the carriage, Renee asks Iris the reasons for her thoughtfulness. Iris answers her by telling her that Zelos is the most powerful mage in the world and that she should join him. Renee begins to think Iris has feelings for him and tells Iris so. Iris, deeply embarrassed, denies it, but Renee continues to suspect Iris because she saw them alone the other night. Iris exclaims that Renee has got it all wrong, but Renee merely warns Iris to beware of love syndrome. Renee explains that love syndrome can lead to Iris unconsciously attacking the person she is in love with. Iris begs Renee to say it's a joke, but Renee only says that she read it in books. Iris begins to worry that if she gets close to Zelos, she might develop love syndrome. Aleph appeared before the Knight Captain with an elevated level. The captain was greatly surprised by Captain Aleph's rise to level 154 and asked him how many near-death situations he'd been in. Captain Aleph responded by saying he couldn't have handled them without his subordinates. The captain looked at Aleph and noticed an aura that was typical of wild animals. Looking at the report, he asked in surprise about the monsters that were not supposed to appear in that area. Aleph asks if they should explore the nearby villages, as he suspects that the monsters are changing their habitat due to being pursued by stronger monsters. The captain decides to send mercenaries there, since they are the best ones to deal with the crazy monkeys. Aleph gives some advice about these monsters, and the captain in turn wishes Aleph a good rest. Aleph was still trying to explain about the crazy monkeys when Zelos and his comrades came to Sir Creston. Sir Creston was overjoyed that his Celestine had returned safe and sound. Celestine and Schwade have resumed their training. Zelos and Sir Creston notice that the students are stronger than they were a week ago. Sir Creston sees them as a reliable support for the future. The man had no doubts about his grandchildren, as they were born into a very powerful family. Zelos asks the man if he intends to involve his grandchildren in the conflict between the factions. The man begins to tell Zelen that books are currently created by bribe-takers who write low-quality books that are of no use, but the hero's optimized spells can greatly improve people's magic. The hero explains that this could lead to problems, and Sir Creston considers Plan B. The man explains that the first batch of spells has already been approved for sale, and that the construction spell is already on sale. The hero says that a low price could destroy the factions. Meanwhile, the brother and sister are trying to destroy the golems. The blonde states that the stone golems have very good teamwork and that the core needs to be destroyed. They take turns using the spells Wall of the Silver God, Shield Bash, Cutting Blade. The siblings felt a tremor in the ground and, surprised, asked if it was an earthquake. Zelos taught them that the enemy doesn't always reveal his strength, and the siblings' grandfather added that it was an excellent way to practice well. Celestine stood on the palace balcony as her brother looked at her and gathered the strength to approach her. Zelos approached him and asked about his secret love. Schwate became embarrassed and replied that it was not so at all, that in fact he wanted to apologize. Schwate explains that talented mages are born from generation to generation, and he couldn't bear the thought of such a person becoming part of his line. Zelos wonders why he hasn't apologized to his sister yet. The hero persuades the boy to ask his sister for forgiveness, explaining that he needs to open up to her because it might be too late. The boy understands all this, but he can't bring himself to do so. Schwade finally decides to approach his sister and sincerely apologizes to her. He explains that he was ashamed to call her his sister, as there wasn't a drop of magic in her. The sister interrupts her brother, asking him about their teacher's magic. Perplexed, the brother asks her why she suddenly decided to ask him that. The sister explains that their teacher's magic is beautiful and that she would like to learn to perform beautiful magic as well. She tells her brother that magic cannot be used for destruction, and that she would like to use her magic for the good of people to make them happy. The boy explains to her that this is impossible, as he will become the next Archduke and will have to protect his people. He explains that they live such a carefree life thanks to the people's taxes, and he is willing to do anything for them. His sister was delighted with the answer she heard and forgave him. The brother felt relieved, and the sister realized how much responsibility rested on her brother's shoulders. Meanwhile, the hero visited the Duke's house. The Duke reminded the hero of the conversation about the land plot and presented him with the land deeds. The Duke explains that his house was built by dwarven carpenters, the royal builders. He explains that these builders are beyond his control, as if they wanted to change anything in the house, they could simply cut it. The Duke advises Zelos to express his opinion of his house to the workers himself, but Zelos realizes he has no other choice. At that moment, the Duke's two wives suggest that Zelos marry Celestine, as they want to quickly rid themselves of a girl who lacks even magical abilities. Zelos merely bids them farewell respectfully. The wives consider Zelos a commoner, unworthy of their trust. Zelos, leaving the palace, is contemplating visiting Luzurissen when he suddenly hears someone yelling about the food left on the logs. As the hero approached his plot of land, the commander of the builders scolded his subordinates for still being on the ground. The commander approached the hero and asked the reason for his presence there. Zelos explained to the commander that he was the owner of this plot, which surprised the commander greatly, as the owner of this plot should have been the feudal lord. The hero didn't go into detail about how the tome came to be his, but instead asked if it was possible to build a storage room since he was a mage and needed one. The commander, disgruntled, asked the hero if he could use Gaia control magic. The commander was reluctant to entrust this task to the mage, considering him merely an amateur, but decided to defer to him since he was weak in magic. The hero explains that he plans to use control magic and then use magic he created himself. The commander is surprised, as he had never heard of such magic before, but when the mage began using his own, the commander was even more surprised. The mage continued to use his power to create stairs and add rooms. After the hero completed his work, the commander approached him with a job offer, as a mage's qualities would be very useful in construction work. At first, the mage refused, but the commander began to persuade him to join him, and the mage seriously considered the possibility of a part-time job. Seeing the vaulted ceilings, the commander remarked that the hero did have a bit of an understanding of architecture. After finishing, he decided to check if everything had been done correctly. The builders began to admire the mage's work, but the commander scolded them, saying they needed to finish everything on time. The commander noted that with this magic, construction would go more smoothly than before and asked the hero if he was selling his magic formula. The hero explained that his magic hadn't been perfected yet and that it was still dangerous to sell. The builders began to praise the magician's work, and at one point one of the builders asked the commander to come over and help him with the column, but suddenly the commander sharply punched him in the face. The men started fighting, simultaneously arguing over the commander's lunch which his assistant had eaten. The hero, watching them in shock, decided it was time for him to leave. Entering the house, Zelos drew a rune and began to create magic while talking to himself. The hero found it very interesting what was starting to happen as a result of his actions. The magician decides to use alchemy without any additional equipment to process metal according to his wishes. He also understands that he can easily fail if he doesn't fully understand the process of crafting or the technique of constructing a magic circle. The metal formed a ring, and the hero decided to engrave the magical formula on it. Since it was his first time, he was very nervous, but he succeeded. After he finished, he realized he'd expended far more energy than he'd thought, and he wondered what to do with the rings he'd created, even though at least he'd learned how to create objects. He decided to take a nap and recharge. It all seemed pointless, but that was only at first glance. Celestine and Schwade began to sigh heavily, causing the teacher to excitedly offer them medicine, but they refused, explaining that they were sad about finishing their studies with the teacher, since they would soon have to return to the academy. The teachers at the academy were graduates of the academy itself, and they adhered to a strict curriculum, which resulted in the level of magic stagnating and no progress. The blonde explains that the reason for the sharp decline in magic learning lies in the war with the evil god, in which all the excellent mages sent to the battlefield fell at his hands. The girl explains that the other mages were only apprentices and, having received no special training, could not inherit the original magic of their masters. She recounts the history of her people, how the nation that later split into parts emerged, and how they began to feud with each other. She says that after a while, peace reigned and the countries became prosperous again, although few people understand the essence of magic now. The brother and sister continue to tell us that magical research finally began about 400 years ago. The quantity and quality of poppies decreased, and magic had to be studied from scratch. And what has reached the current generation is in a very deplorable state. Celestine and Schwade's grandfather cries with joy because his granddaughter has become so powerful in 2 months. However, he is worried that various people will now try to marry his granddaughter. The grandfather tells the hero that he has fulfilled his request, although it was very troublesome for him. The grandson tries to stop him, as this is their family's secret magic. The grandfather explains to his grandson that he was going to show it to the hero anyway, and now the arcane magic is perfectly balanced. But the grandson still complained, and the hero simply changed the subject, asking for a mandrake for his potion. The brother and sister immediately felt ill, remembering how the mandrakes cried out for help. The hero reassures them, saying it's just a plant and that if the weak aren't smart enough, they become prey to the strong. Later, Grandpa and the hero say goodbye to Celestine and Schwade. Grandpa asks Tina to take care of herself while she travels to the capital by boat. A thought flashed through the hero's mind about a steam engine, but he decided that this idea would be a real cheat in this world and decided to put it aside. The boy asks his grandfather for permission to apply to the academy. He's confident he'll learn much more from the hero than he would at the academy. His sister supports him and wants to quit the academy too. Grandfather understands their differences but refuses to allow them to leave, as it would tarnish their family's honor. The blonde nevertheless lists various reasons why she sees no point in studying there anymore. Grandfather explains that she'll learn not only magic there, but also the proper approach to managing various matters. After some thought, the hero calls his brother and sister to give them a gift. The hero gives his brother and sister magical mediums capable of replacing wands and asks them to send him a report on their experiences. But as it turns out, the transfer of a wand or magical medium from a teacher to a student is proof that the teacher recognizes their student as a fully fledged magician. The hero gave his sister a bracelet and his brother a ring. The hero advises them to work on improving the effectiveness and power of their family magic while they're at the academy. He promises to show them the best magical form he can create. Inspired, the siblings promise to succeed. Celestine and Schweit said goodbye, got into the carriage, and drove away. It flashed through the hero's mind that from that moment on he was unemployed. The hero moves into his new home believing it's the perfect time. He thinks about money and how, despite everything, he'll still be able to find a new job. He thinks about his hobby of farming and tries digging. The soil turns out to be loose. The hero examined the seeds he had received, but not understanding what they actually meant, he activated his evaluation ability. Thanks to this ability, he realized he was holding a very ordinary type of bean. He began to think that he would like to find something similar to his home world. The foreman of the construction workers approaches the hero and asks him about his current work, advertises his organization, and asks Zelos for help. The builders are planning to build a bridge in a certain location, but the terrain is quite dangerous. The river current is so strong that they can't lay the foundation. The hero asks the commander why he chose him, to which the commander replies that Zelos' magic is the most reliable. The hero is upset, realizing they think of him as heavy machinery. The commander says he'll start next week, and the hero agrees. The commander is overjoyed, but then warns the hero that his crops have already grown and that he needs to harvest them quickly, because if he misses the deadline, he won't be able to set foot in the field. The hero shares with the commander his intention to plant wheat and asks his opinion on the matter. The commander explains that he'll need water for the rice field to grow the wheat, but the heroes don't understand how the world works here. The commander explains that rice grass is a weed in this world and points at the hero's feet. The hero, having found the rice, is overjoyed but a little sad that rice's status in this world is so low. The hero begins to ponder what to do in this situation, and his thoughts frighten the foreman. Having made a decision, the hero reproaches the foreman, warning him that he will immediately divide the field and all the rice will be his. The hero immediately begins to plow the field, thinking about how tired he is of wheat porridge. The girl asks in surprise about eggs, and the hero explains that you can't eat white rice without them. The girl explains that eggs are a premium product and have been out of stock for a long time. The temple where she studies only provides them every 2 months. The hero says he'd like to buy a chicken, but the girl, surprised, asks again. The girl explains that wild hens are extremely ferocious, so much so that one must risk one's life to obtain eggs, and in fact, they have evolved to the point of turning into a basilisk. The hero asks about the location of the ore, and the girl tells him how to get there. The hero sets out, but the blonde tries to stop him as there are monsters there, but no one can stop the hero except the magical dragon kings. The girl blushes and wonders what this feeling of pain in her heart is, to which the children shout to her that it is love. The girl's anger deepens and she begins to dissuade them, but the children persist. On the way to the mine, the hero realizes he's only been given a rough direction and tries to find out more information at the tavern. Entering the tavern, what he sees doesn't match his expectations, as common merchants have come here to eat. The hero tries to blend in, but everyone stares at him. The hero hears someone calling him and turns around to see Iris, Renee, and another girl looking at him strangely. Renee and Iris ask her about the gloomy look, to which she replies that he looks very suspicious. The hero sits down with the girls and asks about the way to the mines, to which the girl tells him to forget about it, pointing out that he's wearing a gray robe. Zelos and Iris look at the girl in surprise, to which she explains that merchants come to this tavern looking for experienced escorts, which is why Zelos looks suspicious in his gray robe. Iris tells her friend that Zelos is actually a very powerful mage, calling her friend Jenny. The hero began to feel strangely toward her and began to wonder if he was becoming infatuated with her. Iris and Renee talked about Ruta, whom the girls were heading to, and tried to persuade her to go with Zelos. Jenny wasn't keen on the idea. They begin to discuss what kind of iron Jenny needs. If she needs red iron, they'll need to go deeper into the mines where dangerous worms are found. The hero is willing to go with the girls, but notes that by the time they get there, it will already be night. Jenny suggests they enter the village located near the mines. During the conversation, Zelos hints at his feelings, after which Iris asks if he was talking about her, but Zelos replies that he's not interested in children. Then Renee asks if he was talking about her, but he also turns her down. Then Iris and Renee exchanged glances. The hero looked very closely at Jenny, and she blushed deeply. Jenny, blushing deeply, asked the magician if he meant her, to which he replied in the affirmative. Jenny immediately exclaimed that she wouldn't go with him. Jenny, very angry, follows the hero and her friends. Her friends ask her not to sulk as it's only temporary. Renee explains to Zelos that Jenny hates men and it's not the hero's fault. Iris asks why he needs the ore, and the hero tells her he needs it for the rice grain storage facility. The girl asks in surprise about rice as she thought there was no rice in this world. Iris asks if he's planning to make a combine harvester as it could be used as a weapon against humanity, but the hero explains that he has no intention of creating a weapon of mass destruction. Iris asks him about his work as a teacher, and his thoughts wander to Celestine. The two men in the palace discuss the current ruler of the duchy, who is the king's brother who abdicated the throne. The men discuss how the Duke invested all his profits into improving the people's well-being, how he earned their loyalty, and how sales of their magic scrolls skyrocketed. One of the men shows a particular interest in alchemy and is thinking about how he can use this to his advantage. A dark-haired man asks his father for permission to destroy his rivals, to which his father gives his full consent, as he needs to cleanse the nation of vassals. Celestine and Schweit's father and grandfather are pondering the possibility of Schweit becoming a revolutionary in the future. The grandfather asks his son angrily why he didn't stop Schweit in time when he was heading down a bad path. Schweit's father then explains that he wanted his son to learn from his mistakes. Tina and Schweit's father leaves, telling his father that a beautiful woman awaits him. Grandfather replies, saying these women will soon destroy him, and asks how many grandchildren he actually has. Meanwhile, at the Inn, Iris approaches Zelos and inquires about the great Faflin forest. The hero's expression changes and he wonders why she's asking. The girl says that merchants never return from there and she'd be interested in what he really looks like. She thinks it will impress her friend. The hero, very pale, replies that it's a nightmare. The hero recalls how, on the 5th day of being in the great forests, he ran away as fast as he could. A huge cockroach was chasing him and our hero ran away from it, unaware that it was precisely the huge cockroach, like in his world, that was chasing him. Finishing his story, the hero notices that the girls have become ill. He asks what's wrong, to which the girls reply that the merchants only saw the cockroach 5 meters away, while the one the hero saw was twice as big. The hero merely advised everyone to go to bed as they had to get up early the next day. In the morning, the girls emerged sleep-deprived, accusing the hero of telling them a horrific story before bed. He tells the girls to show them the way, saying he could let the cockroach escape, but he can't let the killer praying mantis escape because it's much tastier. The girls, shocked, ask if he's ever tasted praying mantis, to which the guy replies he's tried it and it tastes like shrimp. Leaving the hotel, they see the streets crowded with people. The girls explain that most of them are guards for the miners. They explain that the village of used to be a large city, but then monsters appeared and ravaged it. The blonde, pinned against the wall by men, hugs her sword and refuses to give up her father's gift to them. The men increasingly surround her and want to take it from her, saying it's useless in her hands. Iris asks the hero to intervene, but he says why doesn't she protect her herself. The hero speaks of peace and quiet for his division. But when the blonde's sword is taken from him, he notices that it's the most powerful sword, currently dormant due to a crack. This sword can be repaired with certain materials. The girl asks for her sword back but is struck in return. The hero intervenes, pointing to a crack in the sword, saying it could lead to the death of its owner. The bandit doesn't believe him at first, but the boy leaves it up to him whether to trust the bandit hero or not, since it's his life. After some thought, the bandit offers to trade the sword for the one Zelos has. The hero explains to the bandit that he doesn't need a broken sword, to which the bandit asks why he needs swords at all, since he's a mage. Then Zelos suddenly draws his sword and points it straight at the bandit's throat. The hero asks if he wants to die fighting him, but the robber throws away the sword he took from the girl's hands and runs away. The girl thanks Zelos for helping her, but the hero merely brushes her off. After thinking for a moment, he tells her he can't give up the sword as it's broken and could kill her if she uses it. Laying his sword on the ground, the hero says he's ready to fix it, as he's done it before. He begins using his magic to repair the sword. He uses various formulas to forge a sword in perfect condition. After he finishes, he hands it to the blonde, telling her that she can use it until she receives a new sword. The girl is very grateful to the boy, and as a sign of gratitude, she bows to him and leaves. She is met by guards concerned about her condition. The hero watches her go, and Iris calls out to him. Iris asks if he knew it was a girl and starts teasing him, which makes the hero feel ashamed. Approaching the cave, Jenny tells Zelos to go first, as she still doubts him. Suddenly, Zelos stops and says he senses kobolds. Jenny draws her sword and orders everyone to get ready. Iris points out that Renee and Jenny are low on levels. The hero decides to help them raise their levels. The hero gives them the magic stones and tells them they can keep them. Renee and Jenny join the battle and deal with the kobolds with flying colors. Iris and Zelos are amazed at how they're doing, watching him from behind cover. Having finished with the kobolds, the girls offer to butcher them. Iris says she hates it, and the hero begins dreaming about the dishes he can make from boars. The hero dreamily contemplates a cold beer with snacks and suddenly decides to build a refrigerator. Iris angrily asks him if he could share the benefits of his cheating abilities, but the hero refuses. Iris exclaims that she wants ice cream, and the hero advises her to make it herself. Jenny and Renee look at them in confusion, not understanding what they're talking about and thinking they look good together. Jenny picks up the stones and notices they're too small to make a sword. The hero suggests moving on and decides to burn the animal carcasses, but suddenly the corpses disappear. All the corpses have disappeared, leaving only a magic stone. The hero begins to think about the reasons for the disappearance, and he is overcome by the guess that the dungeon is doing this. The blonde enters the same cave with her squad and promises herself and her father that she will get herself a new sword. The dungeon is filled with field-type monsters. After creating precious stones and metals, the dungeon creates monsters and invites people to fight them. The more people die, the larger the dungeon's boundaries become. Renee, dumbfounded, calls this mine a stampede. Stampede, a dangerous phenomenon that creates more and more monsters the deeper you go into the cave. The girls try to dissuade Zelos, but he tells them not to worry and says he'll go alone. Jenny and Renee call him crazy and ask how he plans to deal with such powerful monsters. The hero replies that he'll simply kill them. Iris plans to go with him to watch the strongest man on Earth kill the strongest monster. The sage goes into the dungeon, and Renee and Jenny still don't know about the destroyer. They see kobolds ahead. Iris offers to use her magic, but Zelos refuses, saying he'll take care of them himself. He begins using his magic and casts blackbird wings. He took off and quickly dispatched all the monsters. Renee and Jenny stood shocked by the mage's speed and agility. The hero uses black lightning magic, and Renee remarks that at this rate they won't have to do anything. But Iris refuses to let him do everything himself and joins the fight. Jenny noticed that the dungeon had changed and was larger than last time. They moved on very cautiously because the cave could create new, more dangerous traps. Christine de Elwell, the third daughter of Viscount Elwell, became heir after the marriage of her elder sisters. She was supposed to enroll in a magic academy, but since she lacked magical powers, she decided to become a knight, as the Elwell family was originally a knightly family. Her father was a most noble man, but he died on a mission, pierced by a poisoned arrow. As a child, her father told her about a sword made from metal mined in the mine, and now Kristen has decided to follow in her father's footsteps. She's going there to find something. She tries to find ore, but it turns out it's not so easy to extract. Kristen apologizes to the knights for the inconvenience, and thinking about her future sword, suddenly something happens. The ground beneath the girl's feet opens up and she falls through, after which the ground immediately closes behind her. The knights scream in horror. The hero and the girls hear a noise coming from the passage to the dungeons. The noise gets closer and they hear how Christine's knights are fighting spiders, while they talk about how worried they are about their heiress. The knights are determined to deal with the spiders and find Christine. The girls decide to help them as they want to get the spider silk. During the battle with the spiders, Zelos ponders aloud the taste of spiders, and the girls are outraged that he's thinking about food at such a moment. After they won the battle, the knights began to thank them and were just about to explain who they were, when Zelos said he'd heard everything and knew who they were. The knights were deeply embarrassed at their discovery. The hero and the knights began to ponder where Christine might have fallen. The sage stood where Christine had stood and considered the possibility of such a thing happening again. Suddenly the ground opened up again and the mage fell through. The knights and maidens screamed. The mage slid down the wall and rose to his feet, wincing in pain and hoping he was okay. He walked along the path, delighted by the glow of the walls, which at least allowed him to see something. As he walked, he thought about how to find the princess. Suddenly the path ends and a huge, deep hole appears before him. Inside, there are enormous sandworms that respond to the vibrations of their prey. The hero thought that these worms shouldn't make so much noise. He noticed bats creating vibrations and summoning other monsters. The hero decided to get rid of them using the magic of purgatory. At this time, Christine was climbing the wall above the cliff, trying to get out of there. Due to the burst of magic that the mage used, she began to lose her balance. As she plummeted, she silently thought that this was her end and mentally apologized to her father for failing to cope. But at that moment, the mage flew in and caught her. The girl was very surprised, and the magician asked her not to move, since maintaining flight magic is not so easy. Once he got to a safe place, he began to think about killing all the huge worms. The hero pities the worms, and the blonde is surprised that to him they're just worms. To kill them all, the hero uses the Destroying Flame of Purgatory spell. The hero uses his magic on a scale so powerful that a mere human would be unable to. The unleashed magic transforms into colossal, destructive magical power. Magic begins to swirl around the hero and the princess. The hero orders the girl to remain still as the temperature on the other side of the circle is 10,000 degrees Celsius. The ice barrier begins to melt, and the hero now uses earth magic. Something goes wrong and fire appears, but the hero tries to reassure the princess that it will all end soon, although he doesn't quite believe it. When things calmed down more or less, they saw something that shocked them. The cliff where the worms were is now a raging sea of fire. Panicking, the hero begins to consider his next steps and begins casting spells one after another. The hero struck the ceiling of the cave with all his magical power, creating a hole there. The hero is deeply upset knowing how powerful his magic was and still using it at full capacity. He feels guilty. The princess asks him who he really is. He introduces himself to her as an unemployed old man, but the girl calls him the Destroyer. The hero and the princess began mining for magical stones and metals. The hero continually found the rarest and most valuable metals, which only added to the princess's confusion. The mage began extracting metal with even greater zeal, thinking about rice, alcohol, and various sauces. At one point, he stopped, ashamed of how much he'd gotten carried away. The hero ponders the fact that if monsters suddenly appear, they will again be trapped by his magic, but the princess reassures him, blaming herself for the fact that it is her fault because of her weakness. The hero grabbed Christine and, using magic, flew into the hole he'd created. They flew out, and the magician noticed the princess's tired state. He advised her to rest while he began gathering firewood for the fire. The princess asked how he used the magic formula as a weapon, and the hero confirmed it, though he himself was surprised by how powerful it was. He began to think that if he had done this in the game would simply have been unable to withstand it and ejected him, but perhaps in this game, in this world, there were some ways around it. The hero began thinking about the game Might and Magic, its creator, how they went bankrupt and sold the game to private players. He kept trying to remember the creators and the company behind it, but he couldn't until Christine interrupted his thoughts. Christine notices the meat is about to burn, and the hero, finally breaking away from his thoughts, apologizes for being so lost in thought. He asks about her magic, and the princess tells him she can't use it, as if she can't activate it, but she's resigned herself to it and plans to become a knight. The hero explains that she can't defend herself with just a sword and gives her a piece of paper with a spell even she can cast. The princess picks up the paper and, seeing the short spell, begins to doubt it will work. But she still tries to cast the spell, and a small flame ignites in her hand. She's overjoyed and can't believe her eyes. The hero is also happy that she succeeded because this situation reminded him of someone. The hero asks if she'd like to try anything else while the meat cooks. At first, the princess agrees, but after looking at the appetizing piece of meat, she comments on its pleasant aroma. The hero hands it to her and she tastes it. After tasting the meat, her eyes widened and she admitted she'd never tasted meat as delicious as this. The hero told her he couldn't remember exactly what kind of monster it was. After these words, the girl began spitting it out. She looked at him reproachfully and said that he should not have given her monster meat, but the hero reassured her by saying that monster meat is actually the most delicious and that they survive thanks to this meat. It's the same with magic. Mages use it on the battlefield to survive. After these words, Christine asked for more meat. Then they saw a warrior ant, and Zelos suggested the princess try to deal with it. The ant turns out to be level 103, and the princess is level 20. Zelos gives her a sword, advising her to use it. The princess engaged the ant and killed it by cutting off its head with her sword. When she finished, they noticed her level had skyrocketed from 20 to 81. The girl screamed and lost consciousness just like Celestine after the sudden rise in level. He decided to carry her until she came to, but suddenly the hero stopped. After all, Christine is a very young girl, and if someone suddenly sees them, they might misunderstand them. Because of her appearance, they might think he's carrying the guy, which looks extremely strange, and the three girls will start teasing him. He starts wondering what to do. Meanwhile, up above, everyone was frightened and didn't know what to do. Rumbling sounds were heard from all sides. Suddenly, an old man appeared from the hole carrying a handsome young man, like a princess. The knights were just about to begin their search when they suddenly spotted Zelos carrying Christine in his arms. Everyone screamed and rushed to their side. He laid her down and explained the reason for her unconsciousness. Everyone went about their business, not even noticing him, which left the hero feeling resentfully unimportant. They'd gathered enough materials during the day and decided to spend the night in the village. Meanwhile, in the dark Santal bar, various events were taking place. The bandit who had taken Christine's sword was sitting at the bar, furious at the mage who had taken it from him. He was complaining to his comrades that he was tired of low-ranking work for pennies. A man in a black robe, sitting at the next table, overheard their conversation and eventually asked him if he really wanted this. He places the medallion on the table and says he doesn't need it. He explains that using it is very simple. All you need to do is carry it with you. The guild leader takes it. As soon as he takes the medallion in his hands, he screams from a powerful surge of magic. The leader asks if he can really take it, but the stranger says it's his and simply leaves. A man in a black robe thinks about how in any world there are people who want everything without any effort, and in the end, that's what will kill him. Other men in black approach him and ask if he's done everything. He answers affirmatively and says the rest is up to them. The man in black pities them as they are all just experimental subjects. His patrons tell him of his goals, to which he replies that if he didn't have one, he wouldn't help them so much. But the time will come when he will ask for much in return. In the morning, when Christine came to and didn't find her hero, she was very upset. The girls said that even they didn't know he was gone. She regrets that she was unable to thank him, but the girls assure her that he doesn't need it. After this incident, the mines near the village were declared underground. Crowds of people began to flock to the mines, which regained their fame. The heroes happily stroll through the city, imagining how he'll create a refrigerator, a dryer, and a homunculus. He also thinks about hiring someone to tend his fields. Approaching the Belladonna store, he notices that the store's design has changed greatly. The pigtailed girl tells the hero that the mistress wanted it that way, and the dwarves from the handbook company did a wonderful job. The hero approaches her with an offer to sell several magic stones, but the girl immediately asks if they are stolen, as she suspects the hero of being a thief based on his appearance. The hero suggests talking to the manager, confident that she will most likely be fired. Walking inside, he sees various flowers, bows, and teddy bears and thinks to himself of crazy decorations. The girl calls the owner by her real name. The mistress is very unhappy that the girl calls her by her real name and asks her to call her Belladonna, because that is the name of a demon. Seeing the woman, the hero greeted her and noticed that she hadn't changed at all. The woman immediately recognized Zelos and asked if he was going to sell the magic stones again. He laid all the stones on the table and asked for the same price as last time. Belladonna took 15 stones mined from worms and 20 stones mined from spiders. The hero remembered that he hadn't discussed the price with her, but he decided he trusted her and was generally glad she'd bought them from him. He wanted cigarettes and thought about gifts. Children ran out from around the corner, delighted to see the magician, and bombarded him with their questions. The hero gives them fried meat, and they all happily lead him inside the building. Suddenly, a picture of his real world appears before him, as if he had entered his own house. The girl from the monastery greets him with warm words, causing Zelos to look at her strangely at first and then smile. The girl, perplexed, asks him what's wrong. He replies that he feels at home when he hears such words. The girl, embarrassed, suggests telling him the same thing every time he comes back. He explains that this could cause misunderstandings as the girl is very beautiful. The girl, blushing even more, asks him not to joke like that. The hero told her that he was serious and left after saying goodbye, leaving her completely confused. Lucerus was overjoyed at the hero's return. The children, noticing her distress, again began to urge her to come clean and act. The The girl thought the conversation had taken a strange turn and, blushing, asked how they knew about this. The children began listing all the people who had inspired them to be so clever. Then they began encouraging the girl to take action. Loseress was alarmed by the children's words. At the Magic Academy, someone flips through a book and then reads a spell of eternal ice. The man finished casting the spell, and after creating the rune, the magic began to manifest, but then faded away. A young man, adjusting his glasses, sits amid a pile of books, searching for the cause of his failure. This man is the Duke's second son, Kreutz van Solisja. The brother and sister are on board a ship and heading towards the academy. They pass by cherry blossoms. Tina delightedly points them out to her brother. The brother is seasick and can't wait to reach the academy. He tells his sister they'll walk back home. Tina asks what's wrong with his hair, and her brother tells her that he's starting his life with a clean slate and admires himself as he fixes his hair. The brother asks about the maid, Misuko, whom he sent to get anti-nausea medication. He notices that she's been gone for almost an hour. Apparently, the maid enjoys seeing Shuade in the state. The blonde thinks it's possible since anything can be expected from Misuko. And suddenly, Misuko appears behind the princess and startles her with a question about the topic of their conversation. Shuade was angry that she had snuck up on them like that and asked her about the medicine. The maid apologized as she had met an old man selling cookies and had decided to have a snack from him. The maid then began rudely explaining that Shuade, according to instructions, was supposed to take his medicine before boarding. Shuade began to feel ill, but the maid merely sneered at him. Tina asked her why she was acting this way. The maid confidently tells her that she's one of the best, that her husband might stop her, but she's going to get rid of him too. Tina asks the maid who she really is. The maid tells her that she is the one who keeps all 99 secrets and knows how to keep her mouth shut. They enter the Install Academy, and the brother immediately warns his sister not to brag about her magic at first. Tina is very grateful for her brother's concern. The academy is a place where the offspring of the rich are gathered and taught magic, although admission here also depends on academic merit, since aristocrats from different factions study here and clashes often occur between them. Aristocrats send their children, thus strengthening the influence of their factions, excluding from it those who do not support them. The maid warns the princess, as it's easy to imagine what could happen to a small faction if one of its members couldn't use magic. Tina wonders if she'll be able to learn anything at all at this academy. Misuko advises her to have a good time with her friends at the academy, perhaps by stealing a horse. But then the girl felt uneasy thinking about her friends. People passing by pointed at her and called her a loser, wondering how she ended up at the academy. Everyone started gossiping and insulting her. Misuko advised her to ignore them, but Tina couldn't control her feelings. Misuko supports Tina, saying this is her chance. Tina promises her to graduate from this academy. During class, the teacher is giving a lecture, and Celestine decides to ask a question. The teacher is unhappy with this, believing that Tina will again ask a theoretical question, since she herself does not have any magic. Tina suggests that instead of using individual symbols, the teacher use words composed of them to create a control symbol capable of changing magical power. The teacher asks her if she understands what she just said. The woman is furious, as her words completely contradict everything she knew about magic. Tina explains that modern magic is inferior to ancient magic, but the teacher only gets angrier. She teasingly asks Tina if their research is flawed, which means she can't use magic. Looking the teacher straight in the eyes, Tina answers affirmatively, and then declares that she can now use magic. The woman doesn't believe her, but Tina tells how she participated in training battles in the Great Faflin forests. Her classmates were horrified when they heard about the forest. The woman was sweating with anger, as the Whistler faction could suffer because of the Solisja factions. All her classmates started whispering about it, regretting ever discussing it. Some even started to worry. The woman furiously asked about the faction that had taught Tina magic. Tina and the teacher do not take their eyes off each other. The woman announces the end of the lesson and prepares to leave, promising Tina to think about her words. Celestine, smiling, asks for an answer as soon as the professor discovers anything. The woman thinks that because of Tina, everything could go wrong. Celestine devoted more time to magic and physics and also became interested in alchemy, studying on her own in the library. Everyone avoided her, but then came the day to practice activating magic. The maid sits next to Celestine. Tina convinces herself to only use magic for an hour. Another task for the princess is to determine the total amount of magical power and her level of control over it. Tina promises to work even harder at alchemy, and the maid asks about Zelos's teachings. Tina was telling the maid about the hero's words when suddenly someone called out to her and expressed surprise that she was still studying at the academy. It was Celeste. She approached Tina to inquire about her awakened magical abilities. Celestine politely told her that her grandfather's friend had taught her, but she couldn't reveal his identity. Celeste seemed very interested in figuring out his identity, and Tina thought that this could cause problems. Tina was called to activate the magic, and the maid advised her not to hold back. Celeste began asking Misuko about Tina's magic. The maid told her that Tina had become one of the strongest. The students called her a loser because Tina had a target made of damask ore and mithril, and the target also had resistance to magic. They doubted that Tina could do anything to her. But then Celestine said about the task and without a moment's hesitation simply blew the target away. Everyone, students and teachers alike, were simply shocked by what she'd accomplished. Tina stood in the center of attention. Everyone was in shock. Schweit notices that Celestine has overdone it, and his comrade asks him in surprise how she was able to do it. The reason Celestine's older brother was assisting the practitioner was because 3 hours earlier, a debate about military practice had taken place within the Whistler faction, to which Schweit belongs. As it turns out, members of the same family can belong to different factions. At this debate, no one listened to anyone else. Everyone was just voicing their own opinions. Suddenly, Schweit asked his friend if the debate was really taking place here. His friend confirmed it. Then Schweit stood up and spoke. He began to explain that they needed to call a knight who knew the area well, but the mages began to protest, considering a knight unworthy of being among them. But the young man insisted, as both mages and knights would be participating equally in the war. Duke Whistler's second son asks Schweit if he's simply letting this pass. Schweit begins to justify his words, listing the reasons for his enemy's attack. Here the Duke's second son jumps up and Schweit and the Duke begin to argue. Schweit says that while they are talking here, the enemy invasion continues, then asks him what he is proposing. The young man proposed sending half the men to the fort and the remaining half knights and mercenaries to protect the people during the evacuation. After the evacuation, they would burn all the supplies they had to keep the enemy hungry. The mages began to object, but Schweit continued to persuade them. The guy says that for this battle, the mages need to be sent first, but the mages began to object even more since they do not trust the knights and do not want to leave them supplies. Schweit begins to explain to them that knights need to be taught magic and mages need to learn martial arts. The Duke's son smirks and remarks that the boy has never been to war to judge like that. The boy agrees, but also adds that he was in a real fight in the Faflin forests. When the monsters took his food, he had to fight them for it. Those around him were shocked that he was in the forest, and Schweit told them about the experience he gained there. The guy explains that magicians need to learn hand-to-hand combat, since magic cannot always save them. The Duke's son calls all this pointless and tells the council members that they have nothing to fear thanks to the special magic used by the Whistler faction. The boy points out that they don't have the magical power to use this magic, as its use requires a magic level above 1000. Everyone starts whispering, and the Duke admonishes the boy that this is a direct criticism of his faction. The boy explains that he bears full responsibility for this country, but at this rate, things will escalate to rebellion and civil strife. The guy says it's not his faction, but everyone's. Those around him start whispering, saying the guy is royal while the Whistler family is in a completely different situation. Schweit leaves, announcing that the meeting is over. Everyone started to get up and leave. They were impressed by today's debate. The Duke's son angrily asks Blamet about his brainwashing magic. Blamet explains that it had been working up until that point, but apparently Schweit suffered a severe shock, after which the brainwashing magic stopped working. The Duke's son asks Blamet if he tried to use magic, to which the magician replies that yes, he tried, but it didn't work. Schweit constantly reflected it. Schweit shares his suspicions with his friend Dio. He tells him he sensed the magician Blamet's influence on his brain. Dio tells him this is a serious crime. Suddenly, Dio stops and says that he wants to go somewhere on a date with a girl he really likes, but he is afraid of her maid. At that moment, they were passing in front of the middle school classroom. The door to the classroom was open and Dio pointed to Celestine, claiming it was her, the girl he'd fallen in love with at first sight. Shuade says that this is his younger sister. Dio immediately starts to be nice to Shuade, to which the guy asks him to stop doing this, otherwise he will hit him. At this time, Celestine destroyed her target with her magic, shocking everyone. Shuade notices that Celestine used a simple spell that came out with such power. He hopes that Dio would immediately forget about Celestine because of the power of her magic, but on the contrary, he grabbed his heart and called her talented and beautiful. The boy began to talk about her even more intensely, asking Shuade for help in winning her over, but he refused, thinking of his grandfather who would certainly be against it. Cruz, the second son of the Duke of Solistia, continues to study magic, sitting in the library among a mountain of books. Cruz's classmate Eileen approaches him and asks if he is tired of endless reading. The girl asks if he spent his entire vacation reading books, and the guy tells her that he is looking for something that will confirm his theory so that his faction will not leave a chance for others. The girl asks the guy if Celestine is his sister, and Cruz is surprised by her question. Then the girl starts telling him about his sister's successful completion of the practical assignment and about her and Shuade's visit to the dangerous forest. The boy thinks of them as worthless. A guy asks a girl to help him get all his books back. The girl tries to leave, citing business. But he caught her and, looking her straight in the eye, asked her to help because beastmen were much stronger than ordinary people. The girl blushed deeply from his gaze alone. She became embarrassed and began loudly saying that going back and forth 10 times was too much for her. She backed away and, losing her balance, fell onto the couch, pulling Cruz down with her. The girl ended up underneath him, and at that moment their classmates ran up to them. Cruz and the girl were still in this position. Seeing this, Selena and Makarov became embarrassed and began teasing them. Cruz and the girl tried to explain that it was just a misunderstanding. The next day, rumors about them began to spread. Cruz locked himself in his room and continued studying the books. However, he became very interested in rumors about the magical abilities of his brother and sister. Cruz pushes a heavy cart of books and is indignant that the library is so far away. Entering the library, he sees Shuade behind the books and is very surprised. Shuade, a mage made of muscle, makes Cruz wonder what he's doing here. Shuade is looking for the books on ancient magic and theory of magic. Cruz approaches him and tells him he has them. Cruz asks why Shuade suddenly decided to study the books. Shuade explains to him that this is his assignment from the teacher who also teaches Celestine. Cruz inquires about the teacher's identity, but his brother explains that it's the Duke of Solistia's secret. Shuade creates wind magic around them to prevent strangers from overhearing their conversation. Shuade says the teacher has no name, they call him the Sage. Cruz, stunned, asks if the Sage really exists. Shuade asks him not to tell anyone, otherwise the country will be in danger. Shuade talks about the broken magic that prevented Celestine from activating her powers, talks about how the teacher completely rewrote the Academy textbook, and talks about how Celestine has already become stronger than Cruz. Cruz begins to explain that the magical symbols are simply a string of words and that his hypothesis has been proven correct. Shuade is amazed at his brother's insight. The boy tells his brother how the teacher is developing widely accessible magic using the power of nature. These words only further shock his brother. He says that his teacher gave Cruz a gift and throws something into his hands. It turned out to be a ring made by the teacher. Shuade asked him to write an impression of it. Cruz was so intrigued that he immediately began studying it. Cruz regretted not going home this summer, but this time he decided not to miss his chance. Zelos stood there thinking he couldn't make it work. He'd made silage, but he had no rice. Zelos hadn't taken into account that rice needs time to germinate. The commander of the builders appears in front of him with a serious face. He reminds the hero of his promise to complete the job. The hero says they agreed on another day, but for Naguri, next week means Monday. He drags the hero away, though he resists. The journey takes 3 days by carriage. In the carriage next to the hero sat the messenger, muttering under his breath. The hero looked at him strangely and asked if he was always like this. The binder thinks about beans and food and sharply asks the mage why he needs swords if he's a mage. The mage replies that not everything can be done with magic and sometimes it's necessary to resort to weapons. He thinks about the structure of the world he's found himself in. He thinks that there isn't the same cruelty there as in the real world. They arrived at their destination. Looking around, they noticed the river's current was very strong. The hero was outraged by this as it was backbreaking work. He was about to leave when Nagiri stopped him. He explains that they wouldn't have taken this job themselves if they hadn't been asked to help. It was the king's order. All this seemed strange to the hero. Building a bridge there was impossible. It seemed as if someone was staging a murder. They begin to discuss how best to build the bridge and make adjustments to the plan. The hero begins to develop a plan of action. It turned out to be such a difficult job, requiring so many formulas, that he began to doubt his ability to build the bridge. The foreman anxiously asked him if he could handle it. The hero asks not to put pressure on him and says that he needs 3 days to be ready. Meanwhile, the guild captain, having taken a strange amulet from a stranger, defeats another monster. He rejoices that the amulet has made killing monsters easier. However, he and his crew are constantly hungry. They look at the monster and begin to devour it. The men in black robes watched them, shocked by the sight before them. Right before the eyes of these men in black, the mercenaries ate the grizzly and were not even satisfied. Both the guild leader and his team, every single one of them, turned into monsters and rushed towards the people in black robes. The men in black run away from them and climb a tree. They are horrified by what has happened. The guy who gave them the amulet only now realized how dangerous the item he gave them was. In the dorms of the Hanba construction company, the hero sits after a sleepless night. He already has a rough idea of the magic formulas he'll use. As an experiment, he decides to build a rudder column upstream. Since everything has become more or less clear, he decides to go to bed. After awakening, Zelos goes to Nagiri and tells him about his experiments. The commander asks him to be careful and return quickly. The hero goes to the turbulent flow of the river and is going to try to make some supports. First, he plans to construct a barrier using the divine silver double wall. Then, he plans to use the stone formation spell to compress the earth, sand, and gravel. However, to create all this, a lot of magical power is needed. Considering the number of supports he might need, he continued building them. But he didn't yet know that upstream, a country was seeking to seize these lands. He didn't yet know that his actions would lead to a serious incident in the future. The hero hears a noise approaching him. Suddenly, an enraged grizzly bear with many faces and bodies jumps out, all on his own body. The grizzly quickly struck the sage. The hero barely managed to fight back. The fight continues, but the hero understands that he cannot fight back like this forever. Suddenly, the grizzly began eating the arm the hero had severed during the fight. The hero thought about the extreme hunger, thought about how quickly this monster's body regenerated. He uses chain magic to tie up the bear. The hero decides to strike with fire so that he doesn't have a chance to recover. After the last ashes dissolved into thin air, the hero pondered this monster. Self-consumption, regeneration, all of this was uncharacteristic of such a monster. He was also puzzled by the faces within its body. The guy in the black robe had been standing by the tree this whole time, watching the hero. He turned to the hero, saying there were 3 more. The sage and the boy's gazes meet. The sage asks if he created these monsters, but the boy doesn't answer, telling himself that being a witness could cause trouble. The sage laughs nervously, saying he has a bad feeling about this. The boy laughs back, saying he has a bad feeling about this. He draws his sword and attacks the sage sharply, but the sage quickly reacts and defends himself. The boy says his premonition was right. The sage says he's old and the boy should show him more respect. The boy is surprised by his words, saying he's already seen his strength. They begin to fight using magic. The fight continues. They strike each other with swords but are just as successful in parrying them. The sage and the boy acknowledge each other's strength. They are already tired, but the fight continues. They both anticipate each other's movements and actions. The hero feels as if he's fighting himself. The hero offers to stop and talk, but the stranger only laughs. Suddenly, someone calls the hero. They both use spells at the same time. A powerful explosion occurs. When the dust settled, the stranger disappeared, further surprising the hero. The commander appeared in the clearing with his construction crew and asked what had happened. Nagiri asks what happened, and the hero, covered in blood and with his clothes torn, replies that he was attacked. Even the dwarves were shocked by what they saw. Nagiri looks at the statues created by Zelos in shock and asks what they are. Zelos understood the dwarves' shock as they had never seen Ache. These statues were created from a fantasy taken from his world. The dwarves began to discuss how the statues didn't match each other. Zelos explains that he was just improvising, but the dwarves are serious about changing the statue's locations. The foreman says he can't accept such flaws, but the hero tries to resist the dwarf's onslaught, having already expended enough magic for the day. For the first time, Zelos fainted from overwork. Two spies are hurrying somewhere. They discuss how humans became monsters. They decide that this weapon is dangerous to use. They were spies who came from the land across the river to experiment with the amulet. Suddenly they stopped and looked at each other in bewilderment. They saw new buildings right on the river, statues and columns built by the hero. They thought about how difficult it would be to launch a surprise attack now. History has it that their country attempted to cross the river to attack the Santal fortress, but failed. Solstea didn't exist at the time, but the royal family never forgot the humiliation of that defeat and still seeks revenge. The spies notice that the surrounding area looks like a battlefield. One of them notices a magic stone. The spies immediately guess that someone has killed the monster they created, but since only the most powerful mage could kill the monster, they suspect the Gorge Mage. The spies began to suspect that something was wrong here since the most powerful magician had come to this place. They went to investigate what was going on and saw workers building a bridge. They immediately began to talk among themselves because now their magic would be blocked by the bridge pillars. They wouldn't be able to attack this country. Whoever came up with this idea was very clever, they thought. This time, they suspected Duke Delsaces. They thought the discord between the mages and warriors would be a good time for war, but apparently they were mistaken. The spies decided to return home and cease all hostilities as they were not yet ready. The foreman stood over the sage's head when he woke up and immediately asked him about mana restoration. As soon as the hero got to his feet, the commander immediately dragged him back to work. The magician began to use his magic to build the bridge, and the workers admired him. The commander was so excited that his hands couldn't stop shaking. The builders decided to show the magician what they could do with their hands. The builders began singing, dancing, and carrying heavy stones. The hero was shocked by them. The commander, passing by the hero, winked at him, after which the hero, unable to resist, also joined their dance. On this day, the heart of the sage and the hearts of the dwarves became one, but then came the next day. The next day, the hero lay in bed, unable to get up due to muscle pain. The construction supervisor came to cheer him up, wished him a good rest, and then continued building the bridge with his workers, dancing and singing. Watching them go, the hero wondered why they didn't feel any pain anywhere. While the hero was relaxing, the builders were building a bridge to the sound of songs and dances. The hero was wondering all the while whether the dwarves were cheerful because of their race or simply because they were like that. Besides, they were doing their job perfectly in a short time. Suddenly, wounded people emerged from behind the bushes, asking for help. The captain immediately directed them to the recreation area. The captain went to the hero and told him that a misfortune had occurred. The residents had been attacked by animals. The villagers were attacked by black beasts that transformed every time they ate a person. The hero told the captain that the same beast had attacked him. The captain said the villagers had counted 4 monsters. The hero thought of the man in the black cloak. The hero was telling the captain about the monster's abilities when suddenly they heard the monsters. 2 huge monsters ran towards the workers. The workers began to defend themselves from them. They used a spell to open the earth, into which the monster had fallen halfway. They began to form rocks to kill the monster. Suddenly, one of them stopped his comrades. The monster simply took and tore itself apart to get out of there. The monster began to register and the workers began to move away from it. At that moment, the sage ran up. He used fire magic and burned the monster. The foreman asks what kind of monster it is. The hero explains that it's a monster that appears at the same time and in the same place, a monster that someone creates. They remember 2 more. At this time, these 2 monsters are doing something terrible. Burning with a terrible hunger, the 2 devour each other. The one who survives will fight Zelos. The hero and a group of construction workers go in search of monsters. They all stop in front of a certain spot and run into it. They were met by a huge monster, from whose body snakes were coming out. The workers put up iron shields and shouted about retreat. The hero cuts off everyone's heads with his sword, but there's no end to them. The builders unite, use fireball magic, and direct it at the monster. The hero is surprised that they can use magic, but it turns out the monster put up a magical shield, which greatly surprised the hero and the builders. The hero decided to focus his attack on one point. The mage attacks with his magic, but the monster immediately heals itself. The commander rushed at the monster with his huge construction hammer, but one of the snake's heads grabbed the hammer and was about to swallow it. The magician saves the commander in time. The hero says it's very dangerous to be near it. This monster even uses ranged attacks. The commander shares his opinion that the mage swallowed by this monster must have been strong, since the monster can do such things. The hero thinks about how to lead this monster away. Suddenly, one of the workers screams for help. He was attacked by one part of the monster. The commander and the hero were terrified for him. The entire team began shooting fireballs at the monster. Suddenly, the monster sprouted wings, and with the head of many snakes and the body of a grizzly bear, it took off. The hero looks at him stunned. The hero uses a tornado spell, preventing it from moving. Then Zelos uses enhanced fire magic to burn the monster to ashes. As the monster burned, the very mercenary who had initially taken the amulet looked at Zelos with tears in his eyes. Zelos watched in pain as the monster burned, and with it, the people within it. Zelos couldn't remember where he'd seen him. The commander asked Borinka if he was okay. He replied that the axe had saved him. The builders began to extinguish the flames, and Zelos noticed something. A devilish stone lay on the ground. Originally, it was a fragment of the evil god's body. It had been separated from the body long ago and petrified. If magic entered it, it would grant powerful power, but over time, it would transform its user into a monster. Once transformed, there would be no turning back. The owner of this stone would feel a constant hunger, losing their mind, and their only goal would be to devour those around them. Zelos picked it up and felt the stone react to something. The stone reacted to something in the sage's inventory. It was the evil soul stone, the details of which were unknown. It was the stone Zelos had obtained by defeating the evil god. He decided to return it to his inventory. 3 days after this event, a carriage guarded by knights is driving by. A man sat in the carriage, shuffling papers, unsure who had ordered the bridge's construction. The driver relayed what he had heard from Najarisan, that the government had ordered the bridge's construction. The man paused, thinking of Count Okubukino, who could have ordered its construction in the government's name. The driver called out to the man and pointed to the bridge. There was a huge bridge on which gnomes and a sage were dancing. The man and his henchmen stood in shock both at the bridge and at the workers. A little later, the commander becomes indignant because there was no actual request for a bridge. The dwarf hands the man a paper with an official request to build a bridge. The man, looking at the paper, confirms his suspicions. He reports that it's a fake. The gnomes are very upset and angry, and then they ask if they really worked for free. The man replied that such excellent work would certainly be rewarded. He left, saying he must hurry to his lady. The dwarves told him they were counting on him. A few days after returning to the city, the dwarf Borink invites the hero to his home to try some Mekhala beans. Upon entering, the hero notices that his home resembles a workshop. Borink suddenly screams. It turned out that mold had appeared in the beans. The hero immediately became interested in it. The hero began to shout that he had found her, frightening the gnomes. The commander, the hero, and the old man bent over her, and the hero was glad that he would finally be able to prepare alcohol and spices. The old man asked to share some alcohol with him if he could. After building the bridge and finding the mold, the three partied until they dropped. The next day, the hero was stunned by the number of weeds in his field. He spent the rest of his days mowing them. A man in a black robe, speaking to the spies, pretended to be surprised that people had become monsters because of the amulet. He began telling them that if the stone were ground into powder and used in small quantities, the spies suddenly interrupted him, calling him crazy. The man explained that once the powder was distributed, the country would simply self-destruct. The spies say they can't act on their own, they need to consult with His Highness first. The young man promises to weaken the effect, but asks for someone to conduct the experiment on. The spies discuss the guy along the way, not understanding the motives of his actions. The guy remembers his pregnant girlfriend and says he hates the four gods for turning his life into hell. The guy doesn't understand how to optimize this. Celestine and Tivoya were struggling with the homework assigned by Zelos. The difficulty of this task is too high. Moreover, an unsafe magic formula is clamped. They will have to disassemble it and start all over again. The guys are stuck. The blonde guy doesn't think it's that easy to optimize. The guy stood next to them. Brother Clois's knees are shaking and he's like a newborn foal. He's been walking around for days trying to return the book, and there's no need to feel sorry for his frail body. Is there any need to talk about this with such an iron spirit? What's the point of restoring the magic of secret treasures if you don't learn the basic technique? They didn't even notice, and it's all for the sake of attracting the expert's attention to the basic things. The experiment cannot be done in one day and evening. The girl is tired, she was forced to help, and he is resting. The guy completely forgot, and that's not all. There is a strange magic formula. He is at the Duke and fell silent halfway through the sentence. Even the secret treasure magic will remain part of the magic formula, and if it can be read, other inherited magic will also be optimized, and the magic circle combination will have high efficiency. The boy's interest in this teacher is growing stronger, and they will not participate in the presentation of the family heirlooms of the treasure sword from the Weasley faction. The guys think they will get along quickly. The blonde guy sent this to the girl, but did it arrive safe and sound? Elin asks Cloyces to clean up together and pulls him. Her brother has changed, and perhaps because of the woman. In the Weasley faction in the tactical lab, they ask Sam the Troll if such a strategy exists. This is the second son of the Marquis of Wesley. They have the courage to contradict him. The guy was very angry. This idea was his family's, and it was to develop a realistic strategic concept to contribute to national defense, always relying on widespread destruction magic. Its reliability is still not that high, and it is an unquestionable strategy. Blamite must use brainwashing magic, and the man can't, as long as the police are watching them and they can reveal the flow of magic. The blonde man considers his interlocutor useless, and the package will arrive soon. If an incident were to happen at the annual event, it might not be strange, he thought. Let the insects make life easier, and the guy is happy with the fast-growing rice, but he missed the fast-growing weeds. Mr. Zellos received a package, and he hasn't seen Mr. Cleston for a long time. A report from a grandson named Cloyces, who was given a magic ring and is quite popular. There are some terrible, annoying midges there. They pester Celestine, and even spies are present in the academy. The man has a request. He wants to use the technique of reading magic words. Celestine taught the boy to read for a short time, and he learned to read. Nothing bad will happen if you spread this. New magic formulas are quite dangerous, and you can use the old ones. The old man doesn't really understand the original magic formulas, and Celestine wrote them down herself, showed them to him, and was able to remember them. The magic formula, consisting of 56 sounds, directly describes the phenomenon and chemical reaction in words. It's better to go sit down and order some cold drinks. They will be drinking the usual room temperature ale beer that the guy with Mr. Nagri chose, and you can try the chilled version. It is not known why the glass is glass and not wooden, and it is hot today. On such a day, it is better to drink a glass of beer after hard work. Of course, there is something stronger that the dwarf has prepared. The man is interested in what the guy is mumbling about. This wonderful smell penetrates through the nose to make the beer so tasty. This is real innovation. How pleasant it flows down the throat, and this feeling of absolute delight. Everyone is happy with Zellos' store, and the technology is very simple. The drink just needs to be cooled, and it even extends the shelf life of food products. Chilled drinks are so delicious, and why hasn't anyone thought of this before? Magic is seen as a tool for war, but it's very useful in everyday life. At the old man's request, the seller demonstrates the preparation process. All you need to do is place the ice in a tank of water at the top of a metal box, use a freezing spell to create ice, and a small magic stone is enough to maintain it. This can be sold to private individuals and bring joy to people with jobs and a new industry. Nowadays, everything is small and can be scaled up. The invention will revolutionize trade and distribution, which means we need to make a refrigerator. It will be necessary to recalculate the number of mages. Almost everyone in the soloist faction has left, and it would be necessary to attract people from other factions. Too many people give up halfway after graduating from the academy in fighting and production. Herbs are expensive, and even after turning to an alchemist, making magical tools is also unpopular. The world is too cruel for magicians. The faction is entirely occupied with making scrolls. The guy's material is selling too well, and they don't even have time. They need to give one scroll. And there was no mistake there. Just by optimizing magic at the academy, he accomplished such a great thing. This amount would be enough for a lifetime, and it felt like the guy was losing his humanity. If he refused, Delsauces would be to blame. The seller will donate this to a nursing home, hire orphans to work for the charity, and they will bring in money. The children will learn about the difficulties of the work and receive a salary accordingly. Cleaning the city, weeding the farms, helping with the harvest, there is a lot of different work, and at the same time they must keep the weeds out of the fields. A great idea with an interesting owner, and in the Delsauces mansion, the lack of greed is surprising, and they came to an agreement. Thus the Merlin Charity Foundation was born. This device called a refrigerator is quite an interesting thing and will be useful in bars and restaurants. They will set a fair price for it. To start with, they will sell small versions and see the consequences. Goods that don't pass through the company will be stopped, and the man will apply for a patent. The refrigerator scrolls will become the faction's strength, and the border bridge will be fined. Count Yokubukin was fired in addition to the unpaid fine, and one of the Weasley faction's sources of funding will be crushed. The Count's younger brother is good at negotiations and will somehow manage to transfer the title. Everything should work out, and the man is interested in the behavior of the Weasley faction. Their reputation has been suffering lately. The Academy's leadership is wasting its time, which leads to internal conflict. The man considers this dangerous, and destruction occurs very quickly. People hide under the skirts of power and commit crimes. It is better not to be hostile and just quietly observe. Tightening the nets, the same annual event, is an opportunity. Les Lamef, the girl heard a voice. This is a notice of annual actual combat training. Ken Belladonna has arrived and is interested in the purpose of the authorized Count's visit to an ordinary witch. The man wants to use the power that his father trusts so much. He wants to sell magical items that freeze water again and is interested in the work of the Solistaya family. It won't be risky. He heard that the witch didn't have much trouble with hired workers. The girl would definitely be rewarded. The sorceress Belladonna began to help the Count with the implementation of his idea to create a refrigerator. At the Istal Magic Academy, a boy asks Cloyces what about practice and whether it's a waste of time for an excellent student. He'd rather delve further into the depths of experimentation. There was no point in sending a scholar to practice combat. It was necessary to gather the underachievers, and one was participating due to his lag. There would only be the basics and the previously discussed elven writing. They define the word convergence in the language of the gnomes. In the language of the hominins, it means strength. The language of magic is the prototype of the ancient language. Each letter has its own meaning, and they were looking in the wrong place. Some of the letters were changed later, and everything they so carefully remembered was in vain. Grandfather sold a magic scroll, and it had excellent optimization. It was bought out very quickly, and the funding sources of well-known factions were destroyed. He only has experiments in mind, since the working capital was earned through a contract with the seller, and there are internal strife in the Weasley faction. The sons of the Solistaya and Weasley factions are at odds over something. There was a slight adhesion, and now even in the faction everyone thinks differently. Rumors are spreading at an incredible speed. Sam Troll wanted to change Mr. Tvate's body, and Dio called him brother. The guy said it was brainwashing magic. He doesn't even have a girlfriend, and such rumors have already spread. The blonde guy will also get it from Celestine because of this information. The guys need to get to practice as soon as possible. Everyone is finally here. A combat skills instructor named Bourbon will teach them everything, and he is really wanted. The path to becoming a mage is not so easy. They face difficult trials, and they can be overcome by following orders. Everything depends on the situation and on themselves. They are students of the Istal Academy and students of men. All will live up to their rank and let them continue in the same spirit. That day in the academy, only these two words were heard: yes, sir. A farmer works in a field, uses a wind cutter, collects grass with an unknown machine. The children are curious about the car and ask to try it, but they should be careful. It is very dangerous. This grass may be edible. The girl thought it was just weeds, but it is a plant of sorts, and the man will share it. The children are asked to sit down and scolded for their behavior. After all, this is Sir Zero's car. It can be broken. Rice comes in different sizes. Small rice cooks quickly, medium rice is delicious when fried, and large rice becomes very sticky after frying. It is better to put them together or separate them. You will need to make a box with cells. The new invention will be called a separating machine. All the children are very tired and are considered naughty. At this age, anyone turns work into a game, and this is normal. The girl will gladly help and leave the children with Sir Zero's. There are so many things to do with children, and if you need to make a remark, you must do it without pressure. You need to give them time to think and not miss the point of inflection. The man believes that adults should trust children, and he asks for help. then he will treat the children to dinner. The farmer was asked to wait here with the children and bring another one. And who is this person the girl wants to introduce? Maybe with her parents, but it's too early for that, or with her husband. Sir Zeros might be waiting for him. The man turned around at the call and saw an unfamiliar girl standing next to him. They looked at each other. This is an elf, and not just an elf, but a high elf. Her name is Keed, and she lives with the kids in the shelter. She was brought in because of numerous bullying incidents. In the books they write that they are kept in slavery and the girl is possibly a recluse. Keed Harfin is pleased to meet Sir Zeros. The farmer was a simple magician, but there were rumors about the wizard's greatness and the girl would like to fight him. Aren't elves introverts? And she wants to be an adventurer, trains a lot, and can overdo it. It was the guy's duty to protect the girl, and maybe he needs to protect others from her. The children at the establishment were very hungry, and the farmer was surprised that they were eating with their hands. The girl apologized. But they try very hard, cleaning the city and earning at least a little money. The girl negotiated the price. The farmer forgot about his job offer for the children, and the children told him what they wanted to be in the future. What happened to Jane? They met a dangerous enemy while working and broke the sword in half. Luceries knows Jane. It all happened because of a wild rooster, one of the subspecies of cockatrice, and it is so strong. This time it was special. The weapons used were strike control. This is just some kind of subtype. To use a technique of this level, you need to be very strong. They only started using it recently, and the girl is always like this now. The farmer is ready to fix it for free. There was also Mithril there. Mithril is shapeless, it is not very durable and breaks from the most primitive weapon destruction techniques. There is no additional capacity. There isn't a drop of mithril in this place, but the girl was definitely told there was a lot of this stuff there, and the seller himself showed her. They were simply deceived, and they will need to go to this shop near the bridge. All the men reacted to this and asked where she got it. They bought various weapons there, also containing mithril, and asked the farmer to check all the swords. The result was negative, and all the weapons were just ordinary pieces of iron. What a cunning salesman, and what did they find in that shop? How dare he, and they are going to kill that guy. The girl also wants to go. At this rate, this seller will definitely be killed. One will call security and the other will go after Jane. Sir Zeros must stop them. Jane will be in great trouble if she is involved in the crime. The guy has no choice and he will help, but the wild rooster makes everything more interesting. So this is the back door of the stall. It seems like those hired ones are at the main entrance, and in that case you need to go in from the back. They asked the seller where their mithril is. No need to talk nonsense. Where is the evidence? It will be there soon, and only the seller should not run away. At the exit there were several men carrying a box, and the girls demanded that mithril be returned to them. The strangers were surprised, and who were they? The men demand to be allowed to pass. It is possible to hit someone on the head with an ordinary stone, and the old man is next in line. They were just hired and have nothing to do with it. What are they fussing about for? And let them hurry up. Their road is blocked here. How can you trust someone like him? And the men can't handle such small fry. Suddenly they turned around. The elf cut the boxes that the three men were carrying with her sword. Since Keed was about to attack, it was worth saying at least a word, and the girl thought everything was fine, since they were here, and Jane's attention was drawn to mithril. The seller noticed the elf and he wants to grab her. He is interested in how much he will be paid for this. The wizard grabbed the man by the wrist and threw him on the ground, hitting him in the stomach with all his might. He was very wrong. The guy lit a cigarette and thought that was it. He stood against the wall. After the incident, the seller was detained. He denied his guilt until the very end and continued to accuse others of his crime. The police also discovered Mithril's earlier fraudulent activities. Soon, all those involved were arrested, other Mithril sales points were identified, and all the violators were sentenced to punishment. Those who achieved justice celebrated this event in a bar. The first prototype uses a magic stone as a power source to send wind, and the second prototype, with the increased efficiency of wind tunnels, works by twisting the supercharger slopes. The third is a classic manual one, and even after carefully checking the simple mechanism, there is some premonition. The girls came and wished good morning. What is this, and when did he manage to do it? The guy wishes everyone a good day, and everything is already prepared for making the sword. Uncle is a magician. Does he really know how to forge swords? He really does know how. Mithril initially has an effect against the undead, and the man will add something. The farmer uses tinctures of a magical stone that is harder than diamond but becomes softer when processed, and the ingredients must be arranged correctly. The sword shape can be made sharp like a fish, and another suggests making it the most ordinary one. All swords are cast, and the man added several different functions to this sword. He makes it in a comfortable shape, and the guy does a good job. Although he is not a craftsman, the girl considers it a masterpiece. This is magic, how wonderful, and she already imagines how she will swing her sword, and are these two familiar? The girl and Jane grew up in the same boarding school. After coming of age, they went their separate ways. She is being treated after being wounded, and she trusts them. The blonde wanted to become like their teacher, and her friend is far from her, but the girls still respect this person. The farmer may have said too much. The teacher really liked to drink, and at the slightest provocation, she would immediately start saying strange phrases. At such moments, the girls were overcome with fear, and nothing would change if they prayed. But this is a good person, and the guy thinks there are so many different people in that world. The sword has just been made and will soon cool down. The girls envy the weapon. It fits well in the hand. If you put magic there, you can attack with fire, and it's better to try somewhere else. The girl wants to kill these chickens. The man will go to take revenge on the wild roosters. He just wanted them for himself, but they are too wild and they are not kept. It's been so long since the man ate a rice omelet. Keed also wants to go with everyone, and since when? The girl had been aiming at the magician for a long time, and it was not for nothing that the guy was famous for his strength. The soy sauce is definitely not ready yet. The farmer will finally get rice with eggs, but the rice omelet is without soy sauce. The girl has the sauce and she can share. In return, he asks for permission to join the team. Are they okay? What's that behind him? This is one of the prototypes, and it is still not ready. It uses the power of the wind, and you need to press a button. The magic of the device is activated. The blades inside started spinning, and nothing could be heard. Is everything okay with it? The switch. Sir Zero's, the girl was worried about him. Everything got out of control. Something happened that day. All the villagers were amazed. What was it? A flying device in broad daylight. No one could have expected such a turn of events. Now it has flown away. Maybe the magic stone was too big, although it might not have been activated if it had been smaller, which means there is more. The sounds of the engine, the breathtaking speed, people of this world had never seen this. On this day, for the first time in this world, the speed of the device exceeded the speed of sound. After this incident, scolded by everyone, Zeros could only dream of a rice omelet with soy sauce. The client, Bohan, is a former officer who became a farmer to provide treatment for his mother and is the owner of wild roosters, whose eggs are sold at a high price. The roosters surpassed him and he turned to the guild. For some unknown reason, they became so aggressive. What was that just now? A flock of roosters of different species appeared. Under them, a mountain of their victims. Lena discovered a handsome guy and disappeared. These are very strong and aggressive roosters, specializing in archery, striking, and chopping. The girl doesn't care and she wants to fight. Keed became scared. She needs to find the customer himself. He's unconscious and yet alive. The guy used healing magic. It will be difficult. Bohan's hair was so lush, they picked out every last hair. Perhaps they could take on all these roosters and deal with them as quickly as possible. He will gladly entrust this to Keed. The girl must defeat them. The rooster's wings are his weapon. She attacked the enemy. He dodged and quickly went behind her. The battle continues. The rooster repelled the attack and flapped his wings. Keed fights against a wild rooster. A very interesting fight, arouses delight. They are too carried away by each other. The roosters are superior in number, but the fight is on equal terms, and how can this be seen? People are the most stupid creatures on earth. Birds want to get rid of them. The rooster will answer for his words. An arrow flew at the girl. The rooster is a sniper. You can't relax. They are good at camouflage. It is unclear where they might attack from. They should at least return the favor. The decisive battle has begun. This will be her last blow, but these are the words of the rooster. The rooster launched an arrow for victory. The magician also attacked. The enemy was hit. They both lost consciousness. This sword has no blade. As he watched the battle, the blood rushed to his head. It was impossible to cope with this rooster. Only the man remained, and he also understood them. The cock's blow was heavy. I need to concentrate. The god's fist skill is used. The man is not bad, but still not on par with him. Let the bird show its true strength. He is a magician, and his movements are more like a killer's, and he probably has his own technique with which he defeats everyone. The girls were offered tea, but there was nothing they could do anyway, and Keed came to her senses. It ended faster than expected. I wonder what prompted them to do this. The birds are amazed by the enemy's strength and ask him to become their master. They choose the strongest one as their leader, and what a story. If the roosters give up their failed eggs, then with the help of the evaluation skill, he will be able to determine which ones are successful and which are not. The birds will be happier than ever. Let them come to the farmer, they will be useful in the garden and will be strong as guards. Bohan agreed to help, and Keed again says strange phrases about the approaching enemy. Now I have to build a chicken coop, and there is Keed's hair on the table. The ingredient will be elf hair. Will everything be okay with the cooking? Everything is almost ready. The man can't wait. He has created something. This is the work of an elf, a lovely little thing, and they could have avoided death if they had agreed to sell it right away. The investigation will begin tomorrow and everything should go smoothly. The man did not understand what happened. The witch asks him not to misunderstand. She is just doing her job. Strangers noticed a beautiful girl and were planning to invite her over, but it's better not to, because after that they'll be wiped out and she's the boss of Hydera's woman. The girl has returned. He is interested in the results and everything is fine. There will be a lot of money to achieve all their plans. The unknown person asks not to interfere during the conversation and to do something. You need to be more mature for the job, and with payment they will eliminate anyone who is the target. This guy could be your worst enemy, and he's a handsome guy. Did he really take someone's lover? The guy got angry at the nickname baby, and this person needs to be killed. He needs to watch his language if he doesn't want problems. Professionals will take on the job. However, the enemy is the son of the Silent Lion. There is a long story about him. The guy alone dealt with half of the organization and is now seriously thinking about destroying the Weasley faction. The blonde guy is surprised by what he heard. He doesn't know anything. This man runs the underground organization of Hydora and controls all the same organizations of the kingdom in his hands. It is better not to mess with him, and naturally they tried to destroy him, but they failed. There are different nicknames, the Silent Leader or the Silent Fist, and the last one is the Best Womanizer. When he became the leader, the man was very surprised. This man is very scary, especially in power. They have known about the presence for a long time, so it is better to surrender to the Weasley faction. Is it possible to escape after all this, and they will become the target? After completing the task, you can take revenge, and if not, then they will take responsibility for everything. Now there is another new case. He agreed to these conditions, but in exchange, he had to buy everything he wanted. They signed a contract for future work. And this is what he says. The guy demands that the condemning voices shut up. He had a bad dream, and why now? Why should an archer study wrestling? He would have to completely change his usual technique. He needs to develop in different areas, and this can sometimes be useful in battle. Senkei and UK with Zankei help coordinate the other roosters. Their help is very useful. Right now there is a lot of work and their presence is just in time. The rooster has improved over the past few days. He is being praised. The girl is not bad either. One day everything will change. Keed began to visit the farmer often. The girl teaches roosters to pee and they actively participate in all the work being done. The man sat down at the table. In front of him was a dish of rice and soy sauce from Keed. The farmer was a little worried about the composition, but he checked everything with the help of an evaluator. Everything should be fine. There are some strange sensations. The taste of the egg itself is too strong and it overpowers the soy sauce. The guy is in despair from the resulting combination. The gods and goddesses are asking to do the impossible. In that world, things were much simpler and tastier, and yet I so wanted to remember those wonderful taste sensations and why all this suffering. In Japan, the taste of soy sauce varies by region and the ingredients are also different. In this world, this sauce has too weak a taste. It would not work under any circumstances. This issue needs to be addressed urgently, but the farmer is not a master cook, so what should we do? We need to remember all the necessary ingredients for making miso, and did he have any beans? Dandy's hasn't seen Mr. Zeros for a long time. His owner Del Sauces really wants to see the guy, preferably right now if possible. The farmer doesn't have much to do. It's something urgent and the guy was having lunch, tried to make a dish with an egg and it didn't turn out very well. This is soy sauce and has Zeros tried the sauce from the Solestelia merchants. They were just selling it. How rare. The man highly recommends trying it. He definitely won't regret it. Mr. Del Sauces is not an easy manager. The man doesn't really know what business he has with the guy, but he wants the presence of Zeros with a decent appearance. The guy is always in the same work clothes. You have to try and get this soy sauce. He will go change and you have to wait a little. It's not just his clothes that need to be tidied up, but his appearance as well. The guy hasn't done that in ages and can do without a razor. Oil will be used instead of shampoo. Clothes should be better than the current ones. The quality of the material should also be better, good leather from some animal, and for beauty it is better to add a few bells and whistles. In fact, all clothes are made of magic. Only someone with similar abilities can see this, and this cane, at first glance, seems to be for show, but in fact it is not so, and it can easily be used for fighting. The man came out. Zeros apologized for the wait. Was he going to war? The guy went overboard and could remove something. He doesn't have a bag. Does the man want to eat? Eggs can be distributed to those in need, and this is an idea, since protein is very beneficial for the body. Zeros approached the girl's house, brought her a tray of eggs, and she followed suit. It doesn't look too weird, but it suits him very well, even if it's a bit overdone. He himself couldn't eat so many eggs and decided to bring them. If the guy insisted, then he could accept such expensive products. The children went to clean up the city and wanted to save money. Could she give me some water? The girl drank a bit too much yesterday, and it became an awkward situation. A girl with ponytails responded to Jane's voice, and in front of her was a real, full-dress black annihilator. The man doesn't want such a reaction, and he saw the girl in this form. According to the local laws, this is bad, but he says nothing was visible. In fact, he saw everything. There's no point in making fun of Jane because she's actually very shy and her speech was a bit rough, but overall it was very nice. And why are they here? They don't have money for a night's lodging. There are few quests in the guild that the girls could earn money from, and they lack the courage to travel. Nobody wants to kill monsters. Then you can learn the skill of replacing housing, and this is completely impossible, but you still need to learn the skills. It's easy to say because the guy has a place to live and a job, and if he opens a business selling magical medicines, Zeros will teach him how to make them. The girl was saved and was very happy about it, but what to do with the eggs, they called him. The girl bought a device at a fair selling new magical technology. They wished Zeros a safe journey on the way out. They'd gotten things going in such a short time, and she even had a refrigerator. Rue loves a guy. She gets an unexpected question. The girl is in a stupor. Another girl thought so too. Jane is also not indifferent, but she denies it. It's getting more and more interesting. They still can't accept their feelings. There is a love syndrome in this world. The man hadn't seen Lord Delsauces for a long time, and he apologized for the urgency. An unpleasant problem had arisen and needed to be resolved quickly. Zeros would handle it better than anyone, and this intrigued the boy. Tvate will soon be leaving for training in the Ramaf forest and will need an escort. The boy belongs to a faction within the Weasley school that is researching defensive tactics using magic, and a controversial conflict has broken out. The main group is the faction that researches vehicles and follows the principles of Tvate. The magic faction is led by trolls. Sam Troll is the second son of the Marquis Weasley and has a terrible temper. His position as the head of the Academy faction, and he received it solely on the basis of his bloodline, which served as an outbreak of nonsense, and the permission for any punishment came from the Weasley family. The family was involved in criminal activity, later disgraced and disowned. One of the reasons being that the faction's funding was at stake, and the rapid expansion of the Solistals' power changed the whole situation. The majority of the group's members are mages, and they can be easily attracted from other factions if better conditions are offered, and funding is needed to contact the mages. Everything will be in their hands if this source is turned off. The pure-blooded mages think that if they get rid of Tvate, everything will work out and the chain will be closed, but will there be a limit to the useless efforts? And friendly underground organizations are causing trouble. An underground trader who was in conflict with this organization was recently eliminated. He possessed the skill of shadow immersion, which is usually used in politically motivated assassinations. This could not have happened at the Academy, and the magical barrier is a high-risk obstacle. Tvate is in big trouble, so in practice he will be accompanied by knights. Most likely they will send disguised assassins, and their location on the ground is unknown, which means the guy will become a teacher for other children and everything must be fair. It's definitely not possible to cope alone, so what can you do? The man will manage the numbers if necessary, and these three will help with equipment in urgent cases. The birds will forget about work when they see the monster. Iris's skills will be needed, and something will need to be prepared just in case. After all, the goal is a student, and how can one not take it on? And everyone talks about it, but today all that was left to do was put on this. When accompanying, do you need to wear the same clothes, and is it possible to hide your face? Zeros stopped by the fair upon his return and bought himself some food. Soy sauce went well with the egg. Magical alchemy and the depth of production professions that can be used when the skills of the blacksmith, alchemist, and medicinal alchemist are mastered to a certain level. It is a useful magic that can be used to produce various items, and the success rate is relatively low, and the quality is inevitably inferior to that of handcrafted items. A magical stone with a magical formula engraved inside, and it depends on what is being made, so each time it has to be engraved differently. This formula is also the result of Zero's work, and the algorithm he created helps him quickly cope with formulas. He doesn't seem to be bragging about it, and the habit of banging on the keyboard remains. For Zero's, the ability to embody something similar to the real world in Isekai is a very important fact. That world and this world are so similar to each other, but on the other hand, this stone has a slightly complex design. By combining and compressing the same type of magic stone, the power of magical force increases. He produces one large magic stone, and after that it shrinks in size. The effect of the magic seal stone increases sharply, and the magic formula is easily distorted when compressed. This is where the producers have to show their skills, and Zero's is very good at this job. The skill from the game is transferred very easily here, and it is really strange whether it is really possible to recreate the world of games using a program, given the accuracy of the technologies existing on Earth, and if the world in the games is not fictitious. As a penalty, excessive negative adjustments were introduced in status relations, and in dead zones, what was once acquired was lost, including experience, and, in the worst cases, armor was also lost if return after death was possible, and then rebirth was possible. In fact, after arriving in this world, the guy received a message from the goddess. It's even unpleasant to remember. Zero's transferred only his soul into the avatar and traveled between worlds. It felt like he was being manipulated. God rules this world, and he probably doesn't know the concept of a demon. If the guy knew this god personally, he would say a couple of nice things to him. This god often walks around drunk and has a lot of free time. These are just fleeting thoughts, but what if? The guy will make identical ones for Celestine and his youngest son. All that's left is a GPS-like ring and a beacon to attach to the mask. The guy finished ahead of schedule, and there are spare parts left over. After 3 days, the girl still hasn't found a job, but she's an A-rank guild member, a girl with pigtails in despair, and Isekai is almost no different from the real world. The girl will go to her uncle for help. She can definitely cope with him. Now she calls Zero's. The guy allows her to pass. There is no need to destroy this fantasy world with your innovations. This often happens in light novels. At the Magical History Academy, Mrs. Celestine heads to the Great Library, studies with such impatience, and also reads novels, and the girl suggested them. Still, she finished reading that very novel, and what a creepy grin it was. Youth and recklessness, a song about love, and it was interesting to read. But the girl studies from morning until night and has no friends at all. School years should be more fun. If the guys don't have permission to use magic outside of training, then it's a violation, and it's better to wait until the culprit is clear. And indeed, that day, before the girl had time to come to her senses, she had already decided to come to the rescue. In the Great Library, Dio found Tvate, and he began coming here often. He was preparing for the magic exam and found something interesting about ancient times, the origin of hereditary magic, and it was created as a result of an experiment on criminals. The magic changed its properties and began to be transmitted to the child through the mother's body, and during the war with the evil deity, in the confusion, the criminals were released. And at the same time, Sam Troll says that he traces his magical lineage back to ancient times, which is funny. Well, this is just an isolated case, and hereditary magic is imprinted on the brain from the very beginning. Compared to ordinary mages, they have a smaller capacity and can only learn a limited number of new spells. Because of their origins, such families still have strong ties to the criminal world. Representatives of such families are part of the nobility and increase their influence. Approximately once every 100 years they raise a rebellion, and as a result many people die, good-for-nothing parasites. There is another family in which truly powerful magic is passed down through generations and is called a ghost. it is unknown how true this is. Everything is written so vaguely, and a rumor has started spreading among friends about Sam Troll. He could become the next king on his mother's side, and his maternal grandmother was the half-sister of the late king. He may have rights to the throne, and yet he is 17th in the line of succession. Members of the royal family can only be judged by fellow members of the royal family, only higher in the line of succession, so Tvate and Prince Darussasis have the right to do so. There have been a lot of rumors about Prince Darussasis and Mr. Cleston lately, especially from the Whistler faction. What is this old man secretly up to? The Mage of Purgatory and the Silent Lion to destroy unwanted nobles and impose exorbitant taxes on them, to drive greedy merchants to ruin and take away their business. And the grooms for the daughter, who are chosen with bad intentions, are sent to work as servants in a brothel, and the guy has good intentions. He would be burned alive in the same way, but someone had simultaneously destroyed the shadow assets of the Vistula faction and those belonging to the bearers of hereditary magic, and these were the funds of those two. The old man wouldn't even be able to grab the tip of his tail anyway. There was also a description of the beastmen, and he became interested in that. Lynn is studying in the course, and she is very popular with the guys. Tvate is not talking about when he was still training to become a master. He learned the technique of directly strengthening the body by controlling magical power. You need to gather magical power in the lower abdomen under the navel and try to compress it inside yourself. After feeling the warmth, you need to try to make it circulate throughout the body. Beastmen possess this technique at the instinctive level, and their parents teach them in childhood. After mastering this technique, the enemy will not be able to detect it with magical sense, and it is possible to get close to him. After compressing the magical energy, it stops escaping, and the beastmen can recognize magic with the help of their sixth sense, so they become their natural enemies and have their own limitation, a smaller reserve of magical power. Perhaps I should learn this technique during real combat training, although I don't have that much time anymore. The girl uses mirage magic and has no magical power. The guys think she is impudent, and trying to do anything about it will be pointless. Let her get out of their school. According to the teacher, the beast race has very broad capabilities in using magic, and it must free itself from such weak bonds. The boys continue to bully the girl. She simply doesn't know how to use her power. They say the same thing about a girl behind her back and also bully her. You need to gather magic in your lower abdomen and gently squeeze it like dough, then distribute it throughout your entire body, and starting from the heart, you need to fill every corner. She squeezes her lower abdomen, trying to feel her heartbeat all the way to her toes. If you don't like a girl, you can answer, even though she won't be able to do anything. Is that really possible? The girl grasped the essence so quickly. Nature takes its course, let the beast try. The transformation into a beast began, the shackles were destroyed, and the clang of iron was heard. It was a bit cramped in the shackles, but it became much better this way. After all, they told her she could pay back and they would be easily killed now. The children are calling for help. The beastman wants to kill them. Enough. Mrs. Celestina appeared before the hooligans. Do they even understand what they have done? They used force against another, and now they can't complain when the same thing was done to them, because the children have already agreed to speak the language of force. She uses her magical power differently, and they themselves just saw the transformation into a beast. Beastmen are considered the natural enemies of magicians, and they didn't even know it. These lowly beastmen are not even allowed to approach the children of the Weasley faction. The girl has been seen in action at least once, and to use her, certain conditions must be met. Even if several mages unite their consciousnesses at once, nothing will come of it, and you can be as proud of your hereditary magic as you like. And her brother will have more trouble from them. Is the girl talking about the house of Celestive, about all the respected relatives? The Purgatory Mage and the Silent Lion, these guys definitely have no chance. They leave the faction. Yoruna Rak thanked her savior, and the girl thought about what Lady Celestine wanted. Everything is fine now, and the princess will remain alone until graduation. The magical angel is still beautiful today. There is a secret reason for the inability to make friends. She has formed a fan club that secretly eliminates anyone who approaches her. At this time in the city of Santor, Zeros is riding his motorcycle to music, and it runs great. The magical engine is quite good, and the brakes can be fixed later. The guy was an ardent otaku. Zeros suddenly pulled onto the road. The Orc King was there. Why were the mercenaries running away? The man confidently drives forward. A loud roar of the engine is heard. The others are very surprised by his appearance. Zeros knocked down the Orc King, blood splattered, and the monster was defeated with a roar. A crowd of orcs was attacked, the guy just drove on past, there are no traffic rules here. The girl managed to optimize the mechanism of the magic shield, and it is still far from ideal. How everything goes with Lady Yoruna, she doesn't even know how to think. We could team up to do a practical task together. She just happens to have someone else in mind who could join in, and the girl could lead a group of magicians. She will be happy to work with Mrs. Celestine. The girl is very happy, of course she agrees. The girl considers herself useless, doesn't know how to use magic, and isn't generally sure she can be useful, and that they'll start training tomorrow. We need to understand where and how to use the Beastman's abilities. There are still aerial and eagle vision left, and the girl should like them. How are things going with the preparation for practice, and should I get myself in shape? I can barely move, and the guy suddenly got angry, but nothing has happened yet. Where did her equipment go? It was here just recently, no idea, and no one has entered the room for a long time. Yes, there were 2 weights there, and where did so many come from? He started such a mess here just the other day, literally just recently. A column of strange smoke billowed out of Cloises's room and gradually filled the entire dorm. After this, all the students immediately started running, and the next day everything returned to normal. No one really remembers what happened, and student Curiosity was just about to drop in on Cloises on important business. It is unknown what she saw there, but after that the girl was found unconscious and does not remember anything, so that is why now Curiosity tries to avoid Cloises's room. There is no choice, and he will have to borrow equipment from his older brother. Does he think they will give it to him? Tvate ordered to shut up, and what happened? The guy started constructing equipment around the same time as him, and it was taken apart. How and why? How did it happen that a good chunk of him was cut off with sharp fangs and he dissolved the rest in acid? Makarov was asked to keep an eye on him. This is the older brother after all, and they ask you not to poke at this. There is no need to push your problems onto someone else. No one will be allowed to participate in field training without equipment. Cloises doesn't change. Without a replacement, it will be impossible to go to Quartermaster, and the other one is called Dio. The guy apologizes for being rude and asks to see the back of the stone as an apology. It doesn't seem like a good idea, and it's nothing personal. He just collects rare and antique things. Cloises is asked to stop causing trouble for Wakatiko, and both have a bad memory for names. It is immediately obvious that they are brothers, and even their similarity in some ways is strange. Well then, Ms. Yoruna will try to memorize the next 3 spells. You can just call her Yoruna. She is 1 year younger, and now the girls will figure out the spells. This is a magic shield and an air field and eagle vision. As many as 3, but she doesn't know how to use magic at all, and they adapted her a little, so it should work. A magical shield is activated on the arms and legs, allowing them to be protected from external attacks, and an aerial shield protects against ranged attacks. Eagle vision allows the enemy to be detected almost instantly, and they will begin with a magical shield. Yoruna is always lagging behind and doesn't even use magic. She's a celebrity here, and before she didn't know how to fight with her fists, let alone magic. Beastmen, after all, pass on the knowledge that is in their blood from birth, and the girl is adopted. Her mother was a beastman, but she died. She didn't know and apologized. The girl doesn't remember her real parents at all. Perhaps they still remain in the depths of her memory. Let the defensive magic protect you from the enemy, the magic shield. After simplifying the spells, everything should go like clockwork. Everything worked, and the girl asks to see Lady Celestine. This spell is carried out through the hand and is activated from the back of the hand, forming a protective barrier, and the principle of its operation can be explained. It's a bit difficult, but you managed it a little. The girl couldn't figure out how this spell worked for 2 months, but she managed to master it so quickly, and the beastman definitely has a talent for magic. It would be possible to definitely hit this dummy if it were possible to evaluate how effective this spell was for her physical strength. The girl showed magic again. The fragments from the blow flew in all directions. This is power, and this is what she likes. Even the girl couldn't master it so quickly. She overdid it a bit and used up all her mana, something that happens for the first time. A little later they will continue training. At this rate they can even raise their rank. They thanked Mrs. Celestine. Mistress Celestina, she is capable of defensive magic. The magic is unstable now, and you can remember the formula. Let everyone stand in line, and she will try to answer everyone. The girl also has some difficulties. There was someone's silhouette standing near the entrance. She apologizes to Miss. Did you receive a letter from the gentleman, from grandfather? After all, I need to report everything to my brother, who is now in the library. There's something wrong with her, she's ugly, Mrs. Celestine. The guy will give all the necessary materials and he will repair the equipment himself. The materials will go to Cloyces and he will also put them somewhere. That is why they are given to McAdam for safekeeping. Well, by the way, he also knows how to think rationally and will not do such stupid things when he is in a critical situation. The poisonous sting of a deep-sea chimera, obtained in the underwater green zone, he will pay all the money for it. The girl ran to her brother. Why all the panic? There is just important news. The fair-haired man admires the girl's beauty. Angel, you can't miss your chance. His name is Tivate, he's so creepy, he introduced me to his friends. They have this family history of mangling names, how wonderfully she does it. It needs to stop and it's worth telling what happened. Important news, a teacher is coming to see them. Everyone is surprised. What is this magical thing? Will the girls ride this thing at breakneck speed? And how can 4 people fit here? No need to worry, the guy thought of everything. The guy was speeding and caused a small accident, hit the Orc King, and it wasn't like it was planned, it was pure accident. Now the bike is completely safe and there shouldn't be any problems with it. It definitely took at least 3 days. She turns to her uncle. He has parts from a Mini WD. What is he talking about? A Mini 4WD. Initially, his engine was powered by electricity, but then the guy replaced it with a magical one. Everything is constructed from toy car parts and still works. The girl has absolutely no idea what they are talking about. Iris is a first-class specialist in matters of rare magical artifacts. Upon returning, it needs to be finished, but for now, it requires a ton of expensive dragon materials. Whether they can accompany as bodyguards is not exactly the profile of roosters, but they will show everything possible. Thanks to the pendants and this mask, the guy will always know the location of the cocks and the operating principle is the same as the rings. But wouldn't this attract too much attention? It seemed to him that this way, on the contrary, he wouldn't stand out. Their path lies to the pier of the city of Santora. From there they will take a ship to the mercenary guild in the city of Stila and will be there in 3 days. Why is fate so cruel to them that she is the only daughter of her kind? Ah, beloved Romeo. 3 hours have already passed, and when will this end? 2 feuding families and both have 1 child, a daughter and a son. This is that reckless love. They are such poor things. Why don't their parents let them be together? Let Juliet come down. Enough. Romeo must come down here immediately. The guy won't do this, he'll break this bottle and everything will go up in smoke. Romeo is absolutely sure of his intentions. Let them get married already. They've had enough of everyone, and is it really possible to give your only daughter to your enemy's son so that he can become related to this man? The team has a load of idle cargo here and they are tired of waiting. If the goods go bad, they will be held responsible. That's enough. It is very painful when a father values a politically advantageous union more than his own daughter's happiness, and needs her only for status and money, while he doesn't care about the girl. The prince tells about his father's adventures, but from the outside he seems like an ordinary decrepit old man, and things get heated. After his mother's death, his father immediately brought another woman into the house, and after learning that she would not be able to bear him a child, he simply left her on the street. So everything that was said is true. The king's reputation is over. The men only brought grief to the people. What passions for merchants' reputation has always come first, but at least now we can finally sail away from here. Every year it's the same thing. Why do so many freaks flock to this particular place? The situation is astonishing. This looks like another manifestation of reckless love and nothing unusual. Mr. Zeros and Iris should also be more careful, and who knows, anything can happen in this world. There is no way this could happen because it contradicts all the norms of public morality and it's scary to even think about it. He hasn't lost his mind yet. If this happens, then after coming to your senses, the scale of shame will exceed the scale of the universe, and this is just a misunderstanding. Iris and Zeros were overcome with fear of being infected with reckless love and grabbed the rest of the crew, dragged them onto the ship, and the trip took place in complete silence. But after a while something happened. Who would have thought that these two would get seasick? They simply had never traveled on a ship in their lives. They want to blow on the owner. The chickens are so kind and different from the others. The girl does not know how to help in such situations. They want to take the guy away for a minute. If she understood correctly, this time they will be guarding some student. Should they really take Lena with them? She's just crazy about cute guys. The team is shocked. One wrong move and they'll be shoving a bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus into a flock of innocent sheep with their own hands. Be careful, this information is scary. And then her little teeth will turn into fangs that will sink into the skin. It would be better to leave her to train. One way or another, now there is no other way out but to go to Sezin. Finally, land and how the girl loves dry land. The guy is also a person, and before this she was wondering who he was. She can't relax and they are already very late. The girls are invited to jump into the carriage. They are given a ride and men begin to pester them. Girls don't care about this. She understands the situation perfectly well. Is it better to prefer the company of a guy with chickens? By the way, they knocked out the Orc King with one blow, so consider yourself kings in a sense, Zeros remembered. These are the very guards whom the guy met on the road, and they were just running away from the Orc King. There's no shame in taking credit for something that wasn't his. After all, it was Zeros who shot him down, and the men were left in the dust. There is a saying, tell a lie once and you will suffer for the rest of your life. They ran away. They headed towards the mercenary guild. Perhaps they needed to go where they were going. The boys will now be shaking in this thing the whole way. The body is well secured and it is much more reliable than any cart. There are even cushions for the chickens. The guy won't go faster than 60 kilometers per hour. You need to follow the safety rules. Go ahead. That damn old man and that girl with those huge hands, it gave the guy goosebumps. Was he serious? Zeros rode on a motorcycle. The horses nearby were very scared. Everything is safe. It's no wonder Lena and Janet are having fun, and it's not surprising to fall off the cart. Iris is already used to it, quite well, and her father was once called the king of the track. After such a trip, the guys stopped the cart. Two of them felt very ill. It was better to rest a little. The girl was very ill and they were driving on a straight road. They didn't break any rules. There was no difference from riding in a regular horse-drawn carriage. The road is unpaved and there would be some shaking anyway. This thing is not designed for normal people. That's why he and Iris were sick on the ship and not here. For starters, it would be nice to get to the city, and the guy at the Istal Magic Academy is worried about the teacher's arrival. He can't even look him in the eye. There is no progress in magic. And the girl also wondered how right it would be to meet him now. Who was everyone so scared of? Master Zeros. It's not that they're scared, but why is Cloyces so dirty? During the experiment, a small, unplanned explosion occurred and it all looks more like something other than fear. A great sage with immense knowledge, he is also a hermit who is crazy about agriculture, and he is also an unusually gifted archmage with atypically developed abilities. He is broad-minded and at the same time has a strange character. He gives alms to orphans and at the same time is a ruthless killing machine. The combination is too wild. If you think about it, he is similar in character to the guy, and you can notice this upon arrival. His behavior and way of thinking, and he is a very contradictory person. Suddenly the girl jumped out of the bushes. According to the latest information, Master Zeros was already approaching the city. Everything happened so quickly. He's heading here on a magical artifact of his own making, a magical artifact that the sage himself created. Cloyces shouldn't yell like that, and it's a secret. He just suddenly became interested. He had previously mentioned wanting to create something similar. Based on the information received, it was possible to determine the speed of this machine, and it is so great that with its help one can even fly into the heavens. It is impossible to even imagine such a thing, and most importantly, why? What if he created this machine purely by accident, maybe made a mistake in the magic formula or accidentally used too much magic in the process? He is overexerting himself and should cool off. Wouldn't it be better to at least tidy yourself up a little before the meeting? The only thing worse than that is a pile of rubbish in the room. Is this a call to action or an attempt to point out his shortcomings? It's time for the lady to go, and she was planning to study magical arts with the junior students. It's a pity she can't meet with the teacher, and the guy has a faction meeting planned. The little sisters are already here, and why is everyone suddenly calling her big sister? Such a calm attitude towards this, and Mr. Cloyces' fan has also arrived. Is there only one guy here who is not popular? There's a teachers' meeting at Cloyces and they've never met in person. He doesn't even know what he looks like, and yet they still ask the guy about it. The blonde guy is right, of course, and now they still ask him to go to the meeting with him, and the guy's responsibilities include accompanying Celestine. But if we're talking about Mr. Cloyces, then the girl agrees, and who knows what kind of cunning traitors he managed to pick up on the way to the master. She sees right through him, and her request to look after the guy and accompany him to the meeting place will be fulfilled. Is it possible to walk straight like that? The dirt stains on the blue cape are not that noticeable, but they are quite noticeable. Previously, the capes of the academy students varied in color depending on the student's academic performance, and there were only 3 main types: red and black with gray, the same for ordinary magicians. After declaring such a division discriminatory, the school administration allowed each student to choose the color of their cape individually, and one of the few colors unavailable for selection is still white, as wearing such a cape is an indicator of the mage's great merits in protecting the kingdom from enemy forces. Also, students are not allowed to wear a red cape. It is given to straight-A students such as T-Vate, and such students are extremely rare. His parents sent him a spare cape from home, and he has no idea where he put it or maybe even lost it. The spare cape was the very equipment that Cloyces needed. The diligent search made the cluttered room look even worse, and the chance finally came to meet the owner of this ring. The guy wanted to ask him about a lot of things. The fair-haired man thinks they came here to practice their wit. T-Vate doesn't need that, but the guy could use some practice. The brat gets on his nerves and T-Vate is blamed, while they themselves are plotting behind his back and doing business with shady characters, trying to get rid of the guy. There's no point in throwing around serious accusations. The guys are here to put an end to all this. When did he manage to prepare so much? If he hadn't heard these words now, he would never have believed it. The guy has royal blood in his veins, and what can they do to him? The two of them come from the same family. T-Vate's position in society is significantly higher, or they've already forgotten about it. If there's evidence, everyone involved in the crime will be arrested immediately. The guy will do everything to get rid of this boy. Since the plan is revealed, there is nothing left to lose. So it turns out those two are now also considered accomplices, and who did they contact? It was amazing. How did his father manage to get such information? Hatari got it, and he is one of Samatral's henchmen. It was worth intimidating him a little, and he immediately cracked. About the end of all this is true. What a big city, and the academy is located in its very center, a real city of scientists. The Istal Magic Academy is divided into 3 buildings, junior and middle, with the senior buildings occupying a fairly large area, including the dormitories. Requests for medicinal herb collection and travel companionship are common here, but especially popular are requests for participation in experiments testing the effectiveness of magical potions and experiments on living people. And for all this, people turn to the mercenary guild. If they pay well for this, then why not try yourself as a guinea pig, and at the same time you can treat your ailments, and here is the canteen and meeting room. The Duke of Delsas will already take care of this. All that remains is to hand over his letter to the guildmaster. The girls looked at the man. They were working like crazy to earn money for this damn membership card, and he used his connections. He would pay the fee for the card and register with everyone else. Even he did everything in the game himself, and up until this point he also achieved everything himself. Since all 3 are against it, then nothing can be done. The guys contacted us regarding a request for escort and security for an academy student. They arrived just in time as they were about to close. To register for this request, you must provide a guild membership card or a personal invitation. This letter must be handed over to the guildmaster in person, and it must be stamped. They are asked to wait here. What is wrong with this seal? It belongs to the noble house of Celisti. Mr. Zeros is not as simple as he seems, and the girl should not know the details at all. In the world where the guy came from, he is far from the society of aristocrats, but this situation reminds him of something. So this is the same Mr. Zeros who received an invitation from Duke Celisti himself. Saifon asks to be loved and favored. He is the manager of this guild. They will be acquainted, but somehow they don't like his look. Why is Uncle shaking? He's fine, but the guy is kind of crazy and looks like a crazy monkey. It's so easy to entrust Mr. Zeros with an S-rank mission. No matter how wild and impatient he is, you need to make sure he has a sufficient skill level before issuing permission. The guy will finally have a worthy opponent. For the man, this is a nightmare come true. He is very surprised. They will have to conduct a dialogue with swords and will have to face him in a duel, something like that. The guy hasn't fought with someone so skilled in a long time. The guy really liked it. He even got all fired up. What's wrong with this blonde guy? Well, he's actually quite peace-loving and manages to survive in the remote outback. Didn't the Duke of Delsas mention this in his letter? The guy already wants to escape. Well, the issue can be resolved not with swords, but in another way, and after that he will be given a guild card along with everything he needs, preferably with swords. Wait, Saifon, you mean Saifon Lightning? But isn't he an S-rank mercenary, a highly skilled swordsman, and the guy who managed to defeat the Wyvern and the Hellish Chimera with his rapier? He is an extremely skilled fighter and earned the nickname Lightning thanks to his incredibly fast blade mastery. Rumor has it that he is so strong that the nickname arose from his ability to seduce men, but there is also another nickname, Seifon, the killer of hundreds. The girl does not want to hear anything about it anymore. It would be better to just register as a mercenary than to get involved in all this trouble, and the uncle might just stock up on hemorrhoid medicine, but you shouldn't take this option so seriously. Well, then we can get started. The training ground is behind them. He hates every little thing so much. What about the choice of weapons? And they might use training swords, although the guy would prefer another option. Isn't the inventory in this state subject to replacement? They cover their expenses based on their earnings, and there aren't that many of them. If the mercenaries were as good and they didn't have to work part-time at a restaurant on the side, the quality of the monsters decreases along with the guild's profits. And because of the demonic fauna here, it's clearly not that easy to get hold of magic stones. The fight with the guildmaster is so unusual, and the guy will fight with his own weapon. It's great, it's much more fun. The atmosphere is heating up. Zeros will throw up and they will start after she touches the floor, and the guy is all in anticipation. The coin fell to the floor, a fight began, and the opponents took up arms. A blow that cuts through the air, and who is this old man? Can he really stand on equal terms with the guild master? Killer Fang, the guy couldn't even imagine that he would aim at a weapon in such a situation. Is this how mages fight? And Zeros is not a pure mage. It will get hot very soon. Phantom blow. This is an ideal defensive technique. You need to watch more closely. Piercing lunges. The guy can't reach Zeros. He landed a blow, a dirty trick. A sudden double whammy. The guy fell for it. It was just a distraction. His excessive ardor led him to defeat, and this is definitely an S rank, if not higher. With such agility, it would be much wiser to retrain as a full-fledged assassin. The guy's mage qualifications are just in case. This is what happens when you exterminate the RK, essentially taking over their own work, and in this country only a few are stronger than him. Mr. Zeros is the strongest of them. At the same time, at the reception desk, what wonderful soft feathers, and these birds have a rather wild nature, in general very fierce and yet, in such a contrast, very cute. They are also guilty of attacking those who do not belong to their species. Can't they accept more? But according to the rules, damn the rules, a black mechanical horse crashed into them. Who does this man think he is? Does he really need to be given a hard time for it to finally get through to him? Let them get it. Well, that's how the birds created another scandal. This time they only tore up their clothes. The chickens are so strong, they are the best, it's amazing. After this, a story arose among the people about those legendary roosters and how they defeated the rampaging mercenaries in an instant. Another equally absurd rumor arose that if you keep a rooster with you, it will make a person more famous, and because of this, the city was literally flooded with adventurers. The esteemed Duke's concern is certainly appreciated, but the guy is wildly surprised by what kind of royal apartments these are. This room is clearly not for one person, and why such luxury? There is enough space here even to repair a motorcycle. For this you need to roll out the carpet. In general, a cozy room for $4.50 would be just right. The guy is homesick, and such exciting events literally happened in his free time. He might call Iris and the others, but there's no point in causing them any extra trouble. Zeros can handle even a robber. The girl hadn't seen Mr. Zeros for a long time. That's true, he said hello. How she got here so quickly, and it's hard to believe that she showed up here just in time for Zero's arrival, is a company secret, and we need to be on our guard. We must assume that there are plenty of secret agents around and that someone here would really like to see the guy today, Zeros. This is practically a crime being committed right under his nose. An unexpected night visitor is definitely capable of catching him off guard. In front of Zeros is Mr. Cloyces, and this is T-Vate's younger brother. Why was he brought in this way? And there was a mission to deliver the master, which had no chance of success, and one cannot agree with this. Mr. Cloyce was so interested and forgot about all his business. He was pushed into this bag near the store and dragged here by a horse, a punishment like in cowboy movies. The girl is a pro at this and has calculated everything. Half of this is a joke, but which one exactly? Be that as it may, Mr. Cloyces behaved badly, and the decision to forgive him for the girl, this maid, is nothing but violence. Maybe you shouldn't have conversations while standing and walk away. The guy is alive, but is everything okay with him? And it seems Cloyces needs help. He needs to replace something in his fast travel device. Where is this device and what kind, and what is its potential and capabilities? And what about this weapon? What about its area of application? It might not be possible to untie this twitching caterpillar with your hands. You'll need a knife. The effect will be too strong and he'll be thrown back several meters. The girl can borrow her favorite. The guy thanked. Where did they get this sinister blade? If it is at all possible to cut this, what is the rope made of steel threads for? It is a girl's secret. His name is Cloyces Van Celisti. The boy was told about the great sage Zeros. He would like to study with him today. You need to hold the wheel straight and it will lock onto the stroller. It's such a wonderful device, but you have to keep everything secret and there's no way to mass produce them. The guy wants to disassemble the motorcycle and his scientist's curiosity is tormenting him. It will be a side experiment, unfinished for now. What can be achieved through magical training? He wants to learn the professions of alchemist and blacksmith with metal engraving. To reach the limit, he needs to spend a lot of resources. To collect them, Zeros gained the skills of mining, resource gathering, and healing, and they all combined and became stronger. I recently acquired the sorcerer skill, but there is no need for it now. It looks like some kind of magician from the East. Magic is a common thing and it needs corrections. If it is possible to decipher this formula, then it can be understood. You need to take a good look at which part the energy is not reaching. The magic circle is too big. There are no problems with the signs of the magic formula, but these 7 lines can only be earned by producing such scrolls. Previously, he and his comrades had talked about roughly the same thing and discussed magic with in-game mechanics, even forgetting about Sleep, his past comrades. In all the fuss, Zeros forgot about them, but when that guy attacked, there was something familiar about him. But where is Lord Zeros called and Cloyce wants to engrave a formula on magic stones? In that case, it would be better to have the skill to control magic. If you don't support the structure while engraving, a curved magic circle will form inside, and even then you'll get an unexpected effect. They manage to get outside help in this matter. They themselves will decide what kind of magicians they will become. Now we can talk about the main thing. What kind of magic does Mr. Zeros use? Let him ask God about it. The guy passes it on to the man, one by one, and to Tivate, Celestia, and Cloyce. This amulet deploys a self-propelled wall that prevents attacks. The ring transmits the location directly to the mask. In an emergency, you need to release magic and make a special move. Zeros will understand. This is a trump card in an emergency. Cloyces will definitely take it apart and examine it. He's not thinking of pocketing them for himself, as the guy understood. In his place, Zeros would have done the same. They have very similar characters. Everything was explained to him. Especially in the priority of hobbies over everything, so it is approximately clear what the blonde is thinking about. In this case, they count on the maid to fulfill her wish. She is glad of the guy's positive qualities. It's already late at night and the girl asks for forgiveness, wishes her a good rest. Why this rope again? Oh, they're nothing but a commotion. He forgot to get a guild card. Uncle forgot something. She thought there was a rope on the floor. Zeros didn't want to go back there anymore. After he left, the girl heard one shocking fact. What a spectacle, and the guild master is at it again. It's better to stop bullying the new members. New strange rumors are already spreading. The main thing at work is not to get bored, but they are just harassing me. It's just a hobby and that's even worse. Is it normal to have a harem of 53 wives? He has a taste for girls with a masculine appearance and it's easy to confuse them. Zeros is not married and Lena also fits the description of a girl with that kind of appearance. He is not her type and the girl, although rude, can be seen as the complete opposite. There are soft toys in the room. The toys that were in the room at the shelter may or may not have belonged to the children. It's sweet. The girl believes in a prince on a white horse. She let it slip while they were drinking. The uncle is more of a fan on a black motorcycle. He just wants to marry her, and whether it is possible now, the guy does not know if he can and will still make every effort for her happiness. This is Mr. Zero's love syndrome, and if two people have these symptoms, it means they are quite compatible, and so is it with her. Will the guy marry these two? They are childhood friends and usually don't fight, but the symptoms may get worse. But the girl is really sweet, in the Hydra's lair, deep underground. The girl is leaving. She needs support just in case. It will be bad in case of an accident. He doesn't trust her skills. It's just that the opponent is the Duke of Solister. You never know what he'll do this time. Only when they finish with this and stop being slaves, everything depends on the result, and he laid hands on an illegal slave. He was bought when he himself became an illegal slave. So stupid brat, this is a fantasy world, and he was thinking about a harem. The girl had heard that somewhere before. He made a noise and defeated 50 guards. This will come in handy. The other one went after them after fainting and was given food. There is no need to worry, there is no doubt about her skill. The fate of a shinobi is to live in darkness and die in darkness. Finally, the man will return the favor to the damn duke. He will make him suffer. He will make him suffer twice as much. Failure is unforgivable. The duke's son must be killed. They have a determined look. So this is a tent. I wonder what Mrs. Celestina is going to do with it all. What sweet, cute boys. Well, it looks like it's not going to be easy. There are many people gathered here, the most unique individuals. Everyone is busy with their own business. Previously, their new mission was to escort the children of aristocrats, but why hire armed mercenaries as an escort? Is there really something dangerous waiting for them ahead? It's suspicious. In an emergency, they'll use their cockerels. They have now reached level 400, it seems, level 400. Every day we fought with someone who was higher in level, so we acquired the skill of overcoming limits. What was Mr. Zero's planning? Did he raise the enemies of humanity to destroy the human race? It looks like some kind of picture. Is this some kind of fairy tale? It's cute, and when it comes to fighting, they become very fierce. You don't envy those around you. It is possible to find out where the birds are. In battle, they completely forget their role, that they are ordinary cockerels. This ring will allow them to track the location, as well as protective amulets. These things look so expensive. And this ring has a tracking function. You should put it on, then everyone will know each other's location. Yes, if you sell one such product, you can live for 20 years without working, but is it possible to make a couple more of these instruments? Zeros will give it to you for free and you don't have to return it. He's confident since he says so. The guys are hitting the road the day after tomorrow, so why not take a walk around the city and rest before the long journey? Miss Ka is late. Something happened again. What happened to Mr. Zeros? He was supposed to bring the guys a couple of magical instruments. Some business needed to be taken care of. He seems like a freedom-loving guy. Zeros gave T-Vade a couple of things just in case. A protective amulet that could save his life from a surprise attack and a ring with a GPS-like design. Besides these two tools, the guy brought a vehicle that works without cavalry. This time Zeros came in all black like an evil sorcerer. Why did the teacher come here dressed like that? The teacher had reasons for behaving this way. He may have wanted to shield the students from danger so that no one would notice the kids. It's all part of the plan. His appearance just proves that he doesn't want to stand out. It is worth meeting with him in person and taking mercenaries with you as an escort. Mr. Zeros said they will be guarded by fierce roosters. They hatch eggs somehow differently. That's definitely not the issue. What other kind of chickens does the teacher keep? It is important to remember that you should not anger birds, as this can easily cause them to lose their common sense. On the day the training began, some young students from the first years refused to take part, citing poor health. They were all shaking. They couldn't really stand on their feet, but they looked incredibly happy. That day the predator had her fill. It was so creepy that it scared all the kids. The next morning, the mercenaries gathered at the guild and along the way met a horse-drawn carriage with apprentices. The training would take about 4 days, but would most likely stretch out to 10. These carts were borrowed from farmers and merchants and come in different sizes, with the larger carts storing food and ammunition and the students and mercenaries walking or riding in the smaller carts. This entire caravan is guarded by 2 platoons of knights, and they were chosen to protect the students and guard the camp. The mercenaries are obliged to protect the students during training, and their task is also to search for useful materials. 3 days of travel had already passed. They finally entered the Ramahu forest. It was a long way. How is Cloyces feeling? He has been on his feet for 2 days now and can't take it anymore. He has an hour left before his shift. Many can't stand it and refuse to go further. This hike demonstrates students' behavior in emergency situations, and in case of refusal, they can lose a lot of points. So you need to train harder. It's mean to force students to go through this. It was expected. This way they want to motivate them to improve their scores, but perhaps everything is not going according to plan since the guy is already exhausted and even the sister is doing better. She received a great green belt and has more physical strength. She even carries a huge mace. There is something for her older brother to learn from. She sees that Madame Celestine is also exhausted, just like Cloyce. In a girl, intelligence is valued more than brute force. Many are already exhausted. Besides Lady Celestine, the girl feels someone else strong. Maybe it's the teacher. There should be about 3 of them. I would like to communicate with them, but I want a peaceful life, and she is a member of the Marquis family. They must be somewhere nearby. There in the distance, a cart appeared. The guys came out. It's incredible, very big. It's just a destructive force and girls are envious, but won't it interfere in battle? That red-haired lady looks quite courageous. It is these women who are a treasure trove of femininity, confident that she is very thrifty and loves cute things. They are uncle students. They are acquainted with Mr. Zero's. Something happened during the attack of the thieves. So it was they who saved them, and what a coincidence it was to accompany them. The boys know Lucelli's and the girls know Lou. They know each other because of the teacher. You can't say that because it would sound very rude, and there's a whole crowd here. You need to aim at the mercenaries first, and killing them will be the primary task. They will have a blast with the pretty girls and shake a ton of money out of the rich suckers. Excellent. The wild roosters were sitting in the trees forward. So where is the teacher? He was here before. No one hears anything strange. He looks dirty for a mercenary. Maybe he's a thief. Why is the girl so calm? Could this really be that teacher? No, it's the white demon. It's time for them, and Dio needs to get into the carriage. While Lady Celestine is walking, it is a man's duty to suppress his weakness. But it will be extremely unpleasant when they arrive at the scene, and the guy won't even be able to move. It's okay to ignore Dio, but she doesn't notice her popularity at the academy. Grandpa shouldn't get too angry, and is T-Vate here by any chance? What kind of outfit is the teacher wearing? He seemed to have heard from Miss Ka, Mr. Dursasis's demand. It needs to create an impression of mystery, a little bit of intimidation, something that is too conspicuous and generally truly frightening. Subivo and the others need to be watched closely. Sam Troll and I can't remember him. They've been impossible to find since yesterday. Besides the teacher, someone else will come. 3 familiar mercenaries and 3 roosters. Will these birds really be here? You can't underestimate them. They are already above level 400. What did the teacher do with them? What the hell did Zeros do to the wild animals? The guy was very surprised and took a long time to answer. It's better to call wild cockerels a subspecies. T-Vate demands an answer. They communicated with fists every day. There is no time for this now. You need to close your eyes and prick up your ears. You can hear the death cries of fools. What is he talking about? The dexterity is simply wonderful. What kind of dexterity is this? There is no need to pay attention to the ferocious beast. This is a sure way to lose. It was a group of mercenaries, and they were supposed to set up an ambush. This world is full of the unknown. Doesn't he think it's impossible to fully understand it? And the teacher was even stranger than the boy had heard, and the events were happening at the same time. Is there any point in killing? It's just training to hone your skills. We need to check who can kill more game. It's an interesting idea. The fastest one will win. Uki's attack is petrification, Sanki's is poisoning. Senki has a powerful paralytic poison attack, and let them go to hell. The villain's lost, and the Farsight is an item from the lineage of magic. Thanks to the magical conductor, it displays an image from a certain area, and the maximum area is within 1 kilometer. With a greater distance, more energy is expended, and it is difficult to use. The roosters were wearing collars, and it turns out they have an owner, who, judging by everything, is a real monster, like someone from the Academy's student escort team. This means that they may be controlled by some powerful person. Then it's no longer a joke, and if they are exposed, then it will not be their fault. Everyone must go to the meeting place. It is better not to resist, and all responsibility is on him. He also involved others in this. They dare to contradict the leader. Is Bremet's brainwashing spell really weakening? Where the hell is Bremet? The Ramahu forest is huge and located almost in the very center of the magical kingdom of Solistia, and there are also a lot of demons living here, but not as many as in the great deep green zone of Farflung. The magical power passes through the zone and settles in this forest, creating an ideal habitat for demons. This forest is on the border. The magical power of the dragon veins flows here, and it is clear why the mandrake has grown so abundantly. What kind of magical instrument on 2 wheels is this? And that is not the topic here. It's not exactly a magical tool, but more of a toy, and they're not made from such a light material. Cloyces was obsessed with it, and the guy doesn't care about it. Thanks to all this pile of questions, it took a lot of time to exchange equipment. We need to slow down a bit. Maybe it would be better to make a Batman car, and even if the body breaks, it can be used as a motorcycle. Serious attitude. T-Vate is called to set up the tents. He is on his way now. The students are busy setting up the tents. This is also part of combat training, and mages also need to serve in the army. Mercenaries have the option to refuse, but Zeros doesn't think combat training will be useful. And becoming a mercenary just to avoid military service is like putting the cart before the horse. Mercenaries are required to participate in wars until they reach a certain rank, and once your rank increases, the responsibility eases a bit. The main reason is that it takes a long time to become a skilled mercenary, making them a valuable human resource, and senior officials are obliged to train their successors. The guy will go too. He will set up tents for the mercenaries. The teachers ask him not to talk nonsense. The guy heard that among the mercenaries there are hunters of men, so it is better to use your tent. Zeros is surprised by this information. Can't they put up a tent without instructions, and what is this tube for? It would be better to ask another student, is it really necessary to read separate instructions? Let's all rest on earth. They are getting ready to change clothes, and it's just awful. If they see nothing bad will happen, they'll just have a heart attack. Why is your Runa called simply by her first name and Celestine by Lady Celestine? But isn't it because Madame Celestine is a mistress and Charister is just Charister? She is also a noblewoman, actually. At first, it was also a bit difficult, and I wanted everyone to call me by my first name, and they would be a little jealous that the kids were called by their first names. Apart from the mistress, everything else doesn't bother me much. This is the only consolation, that everyone strangely obeys the girl. She also has feelings, and she didn't recognize the teacher, and why did he do this all of a sudden? He was going to set up mercenary tents, and this is not an easy task. He had not been seen since he left, and there were all sorts of henchmen and demons with thieves. All that was left was to protect Tivate. They had a white demon, and they dealt well with the thieves. The bandits were beaten by the cockerels and eventually intercepted by mercenaries. Those who were wounded will be made slaves, and those who were seriously wounded will be executed. Brother Tivate only pointed out the mistake, so why is it so hard to hear a normal opinion from these impudent people who look down on people? The tent is already ready, and is this really the master? As expected from the beastmen, the difference in levels is sensed instinctively, and everything is fine. But such tents are already outdated, and it is forbidden to ask others or even mercenaries about anything related to training. Inexperienced students simply cannot even properly set up a tent. The guys were told not to ask either the students or the teachers, but they are here to interact and work together with the mercenaries. It is very educational, and the teacher wants to help. And so, after sweating their guts out, Celestine and her friends finally found a place to sleep, and the master pitched an incredible tent. After one blow to the ground, it was already assembled, and because of this, one could feel the envy in the looks of those around them.